Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Let's go, chat. Let's go. Hell yeah. We're going to drag them. We are going to drag them. Guys, if you don't know why I'm excited, then you haven't been paying attention for the last 72 hours or so. Just if you've just been, living under a rock or whatever, not following along, we've had Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, and I don't remember who else, all talking about cold fusion. Joe Rogan, we'll play the clip in a little bit, is essentially parroting the exact same narratives that I've been telling people. What's the energy source? Cold fusion's been suppressed. The United States government is much more advanced than what they're letting on. We had John DeSouza shouting me out on Redacted, the real-life Mulder from the X-Files. I love this guy. He is really the Mulder of the X-Files. I watched the whole interview, and he's kind of out there with his opinions, and I love it. We need more of that. We need less people who are like, no, this is impossible, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I want people thinking outside the box. That's what I love. And today, Dave Rossi interviewed Eric W. Davis. The Eric Davis that I've been sitting here yelling, saying that this guy knows everything. He's the world's expert on wormholes and warp drives. Interviews Eric Davis, and we're going to look at that as well. I've been taking notes. Guys, there are major, major breakthroughs in that interview. Eric Davis literally lists out exactly how to produce a negative energy laser. I want to talk more about that in a little bit, but I'm reeling over it. Also, MH370 is, their search is on. New search is on. I was just watching a clip, and I think I want to go to it actually here, of just watching a clip on News Nation. Oh, and also, crap, we got a response from George Knapp. George Knapp had a little fit. Who the hell is this Ashton Forbes? I don't know who you are. Completely full of shit. Guys, okay, before we get to that, let me say this. MH370 videos are 100% real. They're 100% real. Many people in the UFO disclosure movement are complete frauds and phonies. Academia is a fraudulent institution. The media is a fraudulent institution. And the government lies and does criminal conspiracy cover-ups. They do them 100%. If you're somebody that's out there that wants to be antagonistic towards me and say the shit that I was hearing last year, that I was hearing again today, that you're hurting the families by promoting these videos as real, well, fuck you. Here's my response. To all the people that are mad that I'm being mean to people, you can blame all the people that said I'm a scammer, I'm a fraud, all the people that said that I was hurting the families. You can blame them. You can blame them for me being mean to you. And no, I'm not going to be nice. If you weren't somebody who supported my work or platformed me, flip it around. If you were one of the people that was telling people not to platform me, I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that you're a fucking fraud and you're a piece of shit. And I'm going to flip the game around and make it so that nobody ever platforms you ever again for the rest of your life. So if you're one of these people who's trying to make a name for yourself in the UFO community, like let's say Matt Pines, for example. Matt Pines, guy's a complete fucking idiot. Went on Jesse Michaels' stupid-ass interview. You can skip it. It's nothing useful in it whatsoever. Doesn't understand physics. I'm going to make sure that that guy's little career is over. Over. I've got him on the record saying a bunch of talking bullshit about me. I didn't even know who the fuck he was. He's a nobody. He's going to be a nobody for the rest of his life. If you're in his crew, you're next. If you're Ross Coulthart, if you are Jeremy Corbell, if you're George Knapp, I'll tell you exactly how much credit you're going to get for UFO disclosure. 0. The history books aren't even going to mention you. The history books are not even going to mention you. That's the hard truth. You guys had your chances. I was nice for 18 months. No more Mr. Nice Guy. We've got all the science figured out. We've got all the evidence laid out. They're never going to find that plane in the South Indian Ocean because it never went into the South Indian Ocean. Simple as that. Let's get into it. Before we do, cheers. Merry Christmas, everybody. No, I'm not saying happy holidays. Merry Christmas. And happy Hanukkah. Or Kwanzaa, or whatever you celebrate. Let's not beat around the bush. Let me get my martini going here. So, guys, I do want to shout out all of you, though, who have been following along. And you know why? Because I was looking at this video of Jeff Wise on News Nation, and I started looking at the comments, and every comment was basically like, this plane got warped away. This plane got warped away. This plane got warped away. Jeff Wise is also going to get, the same goes for the MH370 investigators. All the MH370 investigators that ignored me, that tried to say that I was scamming people or whatever, you know, the people like Jeff Wise, all the independent group, the amount of credit you're going to get for MH370, also 0. 0 credit. In fact, Jeff Wise, guys, I just tell the truth. Jeff Wise, you're actually going to go down as the villain in the story. Jeff Wise is going to be the villain in this story when all said is done. He's going to be the idiot who I literally gave the evidence to Jeff Wise for him to run with it, and he refused to run with it. I'm not talking about UFO stuff. Literally the fire event. I gave Jeff Wise all the evidence for the fire event. I gave the media a year ago in August. I gave the media all the evidence for MH370. I begged them to look into the videos, begged them. So nobody out there, there's no excuse. No one can say I stole anything from anyone. I begged people to take this story. I begged people. I didn't want to be this guy. I did not want to be the guy that was going to reveal all of this. They forced me to do it because nobody else would touch it. So if anyone out there tries to take credit, they are full of shit. They've all had so many chances and they've ignored it. And this shows that either they're useful idiots or just straight up idiots. Jeff Wise is responsible for the most misinformation about MH370 more than anybody else on the planet. He has pushed out so much misinformation. The whole pilot suicide myth, that was originated by Jeff Wise. There's no basis for it whatsoever. Jeff Wise got kicked out of the independent group because he was so nutty that they wouldn't even deal with him. Trying to say that the plane flew to Russia, which is completely nonsensical. There's no possible way, physical way that could even happen. And now, for some reason, this guy's getting promoted on News Nation. Like, this is the thing where it's like, these are the people telling people not to platform me. They're the ones who shouldn't be getting platformed. The last person in the world that should be going on mainstream TV is Jeff Wise. Last person in the world. The guy's a complete fucking idiot. Complete idiot.
More than a decade after vanishing out of thin air, Malaysia is resuming its hunt for missing flight MH370. The government there teaming up with American marine robotic firm Ocean Infinity for the second time, agreeing only to pay the $70 million finder's fee if the firm finds significant wreckage. The flight carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members vanished from radar just after takeoff from Kuala Lumpur back in 2014. Satellite data showed the plane deviated from its flight path. It's believed to have crashed over the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, I want to point this out. This is their play, right? They're going to call you a kook until you're out of the picture, and then they're going to come forward and try to take all the credit. That's the play. And you know what? I need to go to full screen for this real quick. Their play is this. Their whole goal is to pretend like I don't exist. They're pretending like they don't know who I am, like George Knapp did. That's their play, right? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to weave a narrative where they can get disclosure without admitting that I'm right and the MH370 videos are right. That's what they're trying to do. My response is this. There is never going to be UFO. My response is this. There is never going to be UFO disclosure until the MH370 videos are admitted to be real. Never. I'm going to make sure it never happens until those videos are admitted to be real. So if you're somebody out there that wants aliens to be real, or you want the government to admit the shit they're doing, that's never happening until the MH370 videos are admitted to be real. Anybody who tries to beat around the bush, I'm coming at you hard.
Ocean. Jeff Wise is a private pilot, science journalist, and expert in all things flight MH370. He joins me right now live. Jeff, obviously this renewed search would bring closure to hundreds of families. Would this also help the airline industry?
Well, it will bring closure if they find the plane.
Right.
Now, this is a big question. Remember, there's been 2 searches before, neither one of which was successful. And what's really interesting is that those previous searches covered a much, much larger area, 240,000 square
Who
kilometers.
even enjoys
this? Only going to be 15,000 square kilometers. We don't really know why. There's a lot of mysteries about this announcement. Yes, if they find the plane, it will solve the greatest mystery in aviation history, and will do a lot, I think, to calm people's, qualms.
Let me shout out my
about getting on a
podcast.
plane. It will no longer be quite so unexplainable why a plane could just disappear like this.
A plane that's significantly larger than most jets that we fly on, most passenger planes we fly on here in the United States. This search company, Ocean Infinity, believes the wreckage can be located deep in the Indian Ocean. What do you think?
Well, we don't really know why they think that. When the original search area was described by the Australian government back in 2014, they published a report explaining their mathematical analysis of these signals that had been sent from the plane as it was in the process of disappearing. With the current search area, we don't have any kind of analysis like that. And frankly, I've been covering this case in great detail. I describe it in my podcast, Finding MH370. And there's just nothing that's happened in the last few years that would.
Bro, nobody watches his podcast. Like literally nobody. It gets like 50 views. It's crazy. Nobody watches it. It's terrible. It's super boring. It doesn't really go through any of the evidence. And like just like he's saying here, the only thing he's saying here is correct is Ocean Infinity hasn't even said where they're searching. Ocean Infinity has given no reason. Like, what's the evidence for where we're searching this 15,000 kilometer range? The reason why they won't provide the evidence is because they know it's bullshit. They know it's bullshit. There's no evidence that they've got some new search area. There was some random guy saying he found a wing like 20 years ago or 10 years ago. There was somebody else who's like, I know based on the longitudinal lines of the earth that this is where it went. Like people are literally just like imagining shit. And then Ocean Infinity is just going along with it. There's no chance they find the plane.
Really give any hint as to why they think they not only think that it's worthwhile for them to go search this area of seabed, but it's a very well-defined area. So they seem to have or think that they have some new, very credible and very specific information. That itself is kind of a mystery. We don't know what that is.
And in terms of Malaysia pushing for the search or allowing the search to go on, do we know specifically why, what prompted them to go at it again?
We really don't. They've been talking about this, making noises about it for about a year or so at this point.
Okay, blah, blah, blah. Guy's an idiot. I don't even need to see anymore. Honestly, that's as much as I can handle, Jeff Wise. So first, thank you for the donation. Nick, thank you for the donation. Chris, appreciate it. Respect you. Get the frustration. Anger can be like, you're confused. I'm not angry. I'm vengeful. I actually don't care about any of those people whatsoever. I'm just stating the truth. These people are not going to get any credit. They're not going to get any credit for UFO disclosure. They're not going to get credit for MH370. It just is what it is. It is what it is. We live in a world where if you come at people, you do not have the privilege of expecting those people treat you nicely. That's not the world that we live in. In fact, being nice has never accomplished anything. Nice guys finish last. That's the truth. The only way to actually get headway on this is to make waves, is to really press people and point out the people that are phonies, that are frauds. That's the truth. I understand that people don't like it. I understand that it makes people upset. Too bad. Too bad. If you're somebody that doesn't want to get slapped down by me, then don't come at me. Don't come at me and don't shout out bullshit on podcasts or on the media. I am watching you. I am watching your podcasts. I am watching your media appearances. And if you do that and you are lying or bullshitting, I'm going to destroy you. Simple as that. How do you avoid that? Don't go on the media. Don't go on the podcast talking bullshit. And definitely don't come into my replies or any other people that are talking to me talking bullshit. You do any of that, we are going to find it. And you're going to get called out. That's a 100% guarantee. So don't cry about it later. Don't cry about it later. And don't you dare ask me to be nice to you later. Don't you dare ask. Okay. So let's look at the comments real quick on that. Here's the comments on that video. Check this out. This was wild when I saw these comments. And by the way, if you look at other comments for other videos on MH370, they look very similar to this. So let's see. Let's go to this one. So Jeff Wise is a moron. Of course, that's true. Got warped. You may want to look into 3 flying orbs. 3 UAP orbs stole it. It was warped away. There's video. Waste of time. The plane isn't on Earth anymore. Where be Ashton? Elon could find the wreckage in a weekend. If they can find a tiny submersible shattered into pins and needles on the bottom of the ocean, they can find an airliner. Come on. It landed in Diego Garcia. Never be found. Ashton Forbes has all the answers. It's going to change the world. DARPA fried the thing. Like, look at these comments. Is this because YouTuber Redacted interview of journalist Ashton Forbes information about the plane carrying a large quantity of lithium-ion batteries was presumed to have caught fire? Aliens returned it. It was probably dumped there after it was warped away by orbs. Look at these comments, chat. Look at these comments. Wow. Guys, I love you. Guys, I love you. We are going to win. We have broken through the zeitgeist. I would love to be in the room with the intelligence people that did this operation, watching them just having a meltdown over the fact that like everybody knows how full of shit they are now. And all it took was just pointing out basic logic and reasoning. Basic logic and reasoning. We said, the United States government knows what happened to this plane. We know that. Just that's the first point. United States government 100% knows what happened to this plane. No question, no doubt. They know what happened to it. We've got all these surveillance systems. There's no way that a Boeing 777 was evading radar, satellites, and acoustic detections. This thing is a giant airplane. No chance that they did that, right? And we've got 2 videos. We've caught them in 4K. We've got 2 videos of them teleporting the plane away or possibly annihilating it. I don't really care what it is that they're doing to it, so long as they admit that those videos are real and that's what they did to the plane, right? Heck, I don't even care if the videos are real, so long as they admit the truth about what they did to the plane. Ultimately, that's all I've ever wanted. But obviously, the two perfectly in sync military videos of the plane disappearing in the Nicobar Islands, pretty compelling evidence. The best part is how people are just ignoring the evidence and ignoring the videos. This goes to show that the media is not going to break away from this. Like, I'm going to make sure that nobody ever listens to the media ever again. Nobody ever listens to News Nation or any of these other fucking frauds that are out there. Why? Because we've literally got 2 videos of the plane disappearing. 2 videos. There's no such thing as better evidence than this. This is as good of evidence as you could ever hope for in any situation or any crime ever. The best possible evidence. Literally the very best possible evidence. 2 videos from the military. One's from a classified system with satellite coordinates in it, so we know the exact location where this is happening. in perfect synchronization with one another, filmed in infrared and thermal. How could, if you're a news station and you're not reporting on these videos, then you're frauds. If you're not reporting on the videos that literally are watching the fate of MH370, this isn't another random Boeing 777. It's quite literally MH370. So if you're new to this, realize that when this started a year ago, all the debunkers were trying to say, that's not MH370. That could be any Boeing 777. Literally, I'm not even joking. It seems laughable now. It seems laughable to think that people were saying, oh, that could be any Boeing 777. They would literally were. They're literally going, there's no way you can prove that's MH370. And I'm going, there are coordinates in the satellite video. It's the real location of the plane. What are you fucking talking about? It's literally a Boeing 777-200. That is literally MH370 in the videos. Yeah, we're at the tipping point. So yes, academia's frauds, UFO community is filled with frauds, media is filled with frauds. The government is obviously full of shit. I mean, Jesus, can you imagine hiding this from the world and thinking you're justified in hiding this? Absolutely disgusting, dude. Absolutely disgusting. Okay. Now, this is important to show this because in a little bit here, when we watch the Eric Davis video, we're actually going to be able to explain what we're seeing here. See those dark lines in front of the orbs? They're quite literally a negative energy laser. They are actually producing negative energy in front of the orbs. That's how they're moving around. I would be shocked if Eric Davis has not seen these videos. I would be shocked if Eric Davis has not seen these videos. We're going to actually watch an interview with Eric Davis where he literally explains how to produce these dark lines in front of these orbs with a negative energy laser. And the best part is I had no physics understanding before. Well, not no physics understanding, but a rudimentary physics understanding before this. And almost all of what I speculated back in August and September of last year, 2023, over a year ago, it turned out almost all of it has been 100% correct. That's literally a warp drive. There's literally a wormhole being produced. They're literally producing negative energy using a laser in front of them. It all checks out. It all checks out. There's no way the videos can be fake. Not possible. There's no, Eric Davis didn't make those videos. He's talking about negative energy. It's today. It's 2024, December 23rd, 2024. He didn't go back in time 10 years ago and make those videos. Bob Greenyer didn't go back in time 10 years ago and make those videos. There's no random bored kid that could have ever made those videos. It's literally not possible. They have no basis to even begin to make those videos. Those videos are 100% real. 100% real. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's jump over to some of the clips that we've got queued up here. So, guys, holy crap. My social media has just gotten crazy. I'm getting about 1,500 new followers every single day. And we're pushing 2 million impressions every day with only like a handful of posts. Almost all my posts are going over 100,000 views now, which is incredible because a year ago, I would have killed to have one post hit 100,000 views. It's actually wild. And it goes to show that like this thing is taking off. This thing is taking off. And it's just going to get more and more awkward as people continue to ignore the evidence and the claims that I'm making, because I've made the most incredible claims you could possibly make. I've said that we have operational warp drive. We have operational wormhole capability. We've figured out gravity manipulation. We can produce negative energy. I said we can quite literally produce free energy. That's one of the most incredible claims that people hate because they think that they've been brainwashed into thinking that free energy is not possible when it turns out they're just idiots. And on top of all of that, cold fusion is also real and has also been suppressed. If that wasn't enough, if free energy, warp drives, wormholes, teleportation, if all that wasn't enough for you, well, cold fusion was also suppressed as well, transmutation of elements. and excess energy. So if anyone wants to try to claim later on that, like, I just guessed or something like this, just get the hell out of here, man. Get the hell out of here. Okay, let me hit some of these donations. Go Super Saiyan on all of them. Hell yeah. I was very close to buying a Super Saiyan canvas to put right here on the wall. But I've got a different idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a stand or some shelves right here. I'm going to get a plasma globe. And then I've got some other stuff that we're going to put on the wall here so that it's not so barren behind me. So that should be coming in the new year, probably in early January. Beneficial chaotic disclosure. Yeah, we're chaotic good. We're chaotic good. We're being dickheads, but we're doing it for the right reasons. Because that's the only way this disclosure thing ever happens. Disclosure was never going to happen, like being nice to people and all this other bullshit. That was never going to happen, guys. That was never going to happen. What if they're afraid of the noise you made on this case and they planted a fake plane? There's no way. So a lot of people ask this. You have to realize how much work would go into planting the fake plane. What do you mean fake plane? Are they going to put 239 dead bodies on it? They're going to decay them 10 years? Where? They got to put it somewhere where they have to show that we never searched before, because otherwise we would have found it. The problem with the idea that they would plant the debris or plant the plane is what plane are they going to plant? They're going to plant a different Boeing 777? There's just no way to pull that off without being caught. Now, what they could do is, like, they could claim they found a couple pieces of debris on the bottom of the ocean and then be like, yeah, this is from MH370. That means it must have crashed there. We couldn't find the whole thing. They might do something like that, but I doubt it. I think that the much more logical answer is they're just not going to find anything. They're just not going to find anything again. And then everybody's going to go, but the ocean is, like, really big though. Duh. And I go, but didn't they have satellite pings? So they claim to know exactly where the plane went down. And then they go, it's so easy to malfunction NPCs. Like, it's so easy. If you don't know what NPC is, it's a non-player character, basically like a robot in Westworld, where, like, there's a door right there and they're like, I can't see the door. And you're like, are you an idiot? It's like, oh, your programming doesn't let you see the door. Got it. So it's so easy to malfunction NPCs because they have the same narratives. The ocean's really big. The pilot crashed the plane somewhere. And you're like, yeah, but we searched everywhere. And they're like, it's just embarrassing. What do I think about Cliff High? I think he's probably mostly full of shit. I think Cliff High is mostly full of shit. But for some people, they're gonna end up being right. Like, Cliff High is the kind of person you can say he just got lucky, right? Like, you can make a bunch of generalized proclamations, and odds are you're going to be able to interpret something in a way where it makes it seem like you're right. But if these people try to make very specific proclamations and predictions, then almost 99.9% of the time they end up not being correct. So be very careful about that, guys. This is not a cult. This is not a religion we're building here. It's based on science. I don't tell you, hey, guys, on the 23rd of January will be the day where the Palladians come down and rescue us. Like, anybody who's saying that kind of shit, forget it. There's also this guy, Cab, K-A-B. I don't really know what his thing is. That guy is 100% full of shit. Complete 100% LARP. You should absolutely, he's a literal cult leader. Do not listen to him. One of the first things he did was make up a completely fake story about the Galactic Federation saving MH370. These people are quite literally just engagement farming and preying on the emotions and mental instability of a lot of experiencers in the UFO community. Why? Because a lot of people, a lot of experiencers in the UFO community are looking for answers. They're looking for answers that validate them. And people like Cab and other scammers and fraudsters and cult leaders like that, they know that and they take advantage of it. And they tell you what you want to hear. They say, yes, the aliens are going to come and save us. They saved that plane from certain doom. The Galactic Federation is coming, everybody. Soon. It's right around the corner. That's a cult. That's not what we do here. And you should be 100% concerned about those types of behaviors. Anybody you see making up fake stories about stuff, they're most likely full of shit. Follow the evidence. Follow the facts. If somebody's serious, what they'll do is they'll present the evidence to you. And then if you ask them, they'll give you their opinion. In cases like Cliff High and some of these other people, they don't do that. Now, I don't think Cliff High is on that level of being a cult leader or anything like that. I just think he's, extrapolating based on information that he knows and in a way that probably doesn't get to the answers. I do. I was hanging out with my parents earlier today, and I'm going to on Christmas, and some of my other family as well. So, yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Okay, let's get to the next thing. Okay, so here we go. And let me be clear, like, aliens can, of course, exist. I have nothing against it. But for all these people saying they're coming to save us, or there's 57 races of aliens, or all this shit, this is unknowable information. They don't know this. They don't know any of this. It's unknowable. The number one thing you should be careful, guys, is when people are claiming to have unknowable information. Unknowable information. And if you don't know, you just ask them, what's your source? What's the source of that? Oh, the Palladians are coming to save us in few years. What's your source for that? None. You made it up, right? Do you believe ontological shock will happen when ZPE is revealed? Yes, I think it will. I think that ontological shock is going to have major ramifications for people. Major ramifications. Many people are not going to be able to accept that their lives have been a lie. But, truthfully, guys, all of our lives have been a lie. All of our lives on this earth have been 100% a lie. That's really the only way to phrase it. They've just been a lie. We've been getting deceived. We're in some kind of construct of social contracts that have been built for us. And some people are going to not be able to deal with that. I don't know if it's going to reveal NHI. Not sure. It has a good chance. It has a good chance of revealing NHI. But there's a lot of options. The option, guys, that I like the most, because everybody insists, is ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. Hal Puthoff has a paper called the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. I'm pretty sure it gets mentioned in the Eric Davis interview that we're going to watch. We're not going to watch the whole interview, but I think he mentions it in there. Let's dig into some of the Twitter post stuff that we've got. Okay, so it's been a crazy couple days, chat. So let's start with my boy here. John DeSouza. Couldn't believe this when I saw it, man. Could not believe it. So this guy is the real life Mulder from the X-Files. Here you go.
Apparently the cabal read my stuff about read the extra dimensionals, about the genuine plasmas, the genuine UFOs, because what they did was, one of the things they did was they copied all the qualities of real orbs and plasmas, and now they're creating their own.
Okay, before you think that's crazy, that we might be copying some non-human intelligence orbs, or maybe just like some conscious plasma or phenomenon, realize that Salvatore Pais, in his message that Dave Rossi read out several months ago, actually said like this weird thing about believing in human technology, which made me think like maybe we are developing alien technology or non-human intelligence technology to like catch up to other species, other non-human intelligence that's out there. Interesting.
Own copies of the real UFOs, the real plasmas, and that's what they're doing. I saw this one great scientist yesterday named Ashton Forbes. He's a plasma technology expert. Have you spoken to him before? Have you had him on the show? But
yeah, we've done a deep dive with Ashton here on the show on MH370, and actually we have a big interview with him coming up in just about a week or so on a lot of these plasma technologies and zero-point energy technology. He's a good friend of the show. Yeah,
excellent. Because the shocker that he said yesterday, he was on Next News Network yesterday, and the shocker that he gave us was he said, "Oh yeah, our intelligence tech community has been able to create plasmas and orbs for years now. For years now. Those plasmas and orbs are definitely created by our military-industrial complex tech division." And he says, that's absolutely true. And that's a shocker to hear a scientist that you can trust. And that was instead of, while all the other scientists are trying to get us to say this ridiculous word plasmoid, which is absolutely ridiculous. Plasmoid doesn't mean it means natural phenomena like ball lightning. That's not what these things are. It's a complete distraction, and it's a confusion of the language. They're using MSM to also amplify that, and they're trying to get people to say plasmoid. Well, I want people to say LSDs, large super weapon drones.
Wow. So yes, apparently I'm a scientist now, everybody. Hell yeah. Plasma expert. What I want to point out here, guys, obviously he's just characterizing however he wants. You know, what does expert mean? Doesn't mean anything. You know why I got so tingly? Oh, by the way, thank you, Jessica, for the Cash App, $25. Appreciate that, Jessica. I see you in the chat. Thank you very much. That means a lot. I know exactly what John DeSouza felt when he heard me say that. You guys know too. How do you know? Because you guys, we have all felt it. Every time you've heard me yell Yahtzee, that's the same feeling John DeSouza felt when he was watching me on Next News Network explaining how we can produce these plasma orbs with attosecond or pentosecond lasers or femtosecond lasers. And he was like, crap, there's finally somebody out there that's validating, justifying, explaining the science of what he knew was real and possible. That's such an amazing feeling to get that feeling. And that's part of the reason why we know this stuff is legit. It's like you add up who we've got on our side now. We've got the molder of the FBI, John DeSouza. We've got Salvatore Pais, active Navy engineer. We've got a whistleblower who's a network engineer who actually worked on the cyber system, who says it's 100% the cyber system. I've got VFX artists and experts, including Jeffrey Ford of Marvel Studios. Jeffrey Ford of Marvel Studios, who's on the record saying to a podcaster that I was on with that to make the videos would take at least 3 to 6 months at a minimum for a major studio to do. Problem is you only have 70 days maximum. 70 days is less than 90 days, is less than 3 months. What do the debunkers have? What do they have? Nothing. They've got some retards who are on YouTube that wear tinfoil and Geordie LaForge glasses that have no credibility whatsoever. They've got a photographer who deleted his video because he was doxing people who were pointing out that his photos were fabricated. Debunkers have nothing. They have nothing. Let me hit a couple of these more donations. You guys are going wild here. Last question, I promise. Plasma orbs. Is it possible they're sentient? Yes, I think it's possible they are sentient, but I wouldn't say they're sentient in the way that we are. It's like life comes in a lot of different forms, guys. Is a worm sentient? Is a plant sentient? Is a jellyfish sentient? Is a dog sentient? Is a human sentient? I think that could plasma be alive? Yes. Is it sentient? Maybe. It's really hard to say. If it can be stabilized, coherent, stabilized, long-lasting, I don't see why not. Crazy part is I don't see why not. I would go so far as to say that plasma can explain DNA. Plasma can explain DNA, potentially, in 0G. I wasn't sure how to feel about him quoting you. I mean, it's always good, guys. It's always good. The more attention we get to the case, the better, because we're at a situation where the videos are obviously real, so it's just a matter of people waking up to it and increasing the temperature until things start to boil over and they can't be ignored anymore. Thank you, Michael Meredith. Appreciate you very much. This is so fascinating. It's going to get more fascinating, so hold on to your butts. Yep, I'm a scientist. You don't need a piece of paper if you are walking the walk. Exactly. If you're out there and you're actually explaining science to people on a daily basis, you're a scientist. You're a scientist. I'm more of a scientist than Neil deGrasse Tyson is. Neil deGrasse Tyson's out there trying to figure out why we can't even model our own solar system. Doesn't have any answers at all. No answers. Have you used Malaysian officials' names in FOIA requests? No. You cannot FOIA request other countries. You can only FOIA request your own country. I don't know. You have to FOIA specific stuff, so I don't know what I would be FOIAing. FOIAing random people's names doesn't accomplish anything, unfortunately. So I've learned a lot about FOIAs, and the main thing I've learned about FOIAs is that if they want to reject your FOIA, they're going to reject your FOIA for any reason. I do have a stack of FOIAs that have all been rejected for the most part into stuff like Edward C. Lynn, fire suppression bottles, intercepted communications, Mayday calls. Everything's been rejected. Either they don't have it or it's rejected. And usually when they don't have it, it's just because I FOIA'd the wrong agency. So I've never heard, or I've heard terahertz are important. So terahertz is a frequency of waves. Looking at the electromagnetic spectrum might be something that we do here again in the future, just to like really understand what we're dealing with. When you look at the visible spectrum, it's this tiny, tiny sliver compared to the whole electromagnetic spectrum of waves. And to me, the question is, okay, which of these waves, which of these frequencies are significant? I would guess that the answer is ones that are related to the fine structure constant, 1 divided by 137. I have a feeling that there's a connection there, just a feeling. You should get on with Tori Says and talk mill orbs. Maybe. Tori Says follows me. I follow Tori Says. Obviously, you guys can imagine I've gotten a lot of requests for interviews, and I'm not really that interested in doing a ton more interviews, to be perfectly honest with you. Just because I'd rather do live streams and other content for myself rather than like all the information's out there at this point. So now it's more of a matter of just repeating it. Although I like to do it because I like to support smaller content creators. So I've been doing live streams and interviews with people that only have a few hundred followers, things like that in some cases. What I do ask is that people have a plan for what they want to talk about. Doesn't have to be like exact bullet points, but, you know, a plan so that we're not just sitting here shooting the breeze, you know, because I can do that anytime. I can do that on my live stream. Okay, next thing. Talking plasma. Oh, no, let's do the Joe Rogan thing. Here we go. I actually thought the cold fusion one was better than but Joe Rogan's fan Twitter retweeted me on one of these things. So here we go.
They do have a Skunkworks program where they do have some very sophisticated drones that can do things that these drones are doing. But one of these things these drones are doing is hovering for very long periods of time. Right. 5 hours. 5 hours of flight time is nuts for a drone. And they're not exhibiting this traditional heat signature. Any kind of engine, an electric engine, any engine is going to give off heat. It's going to give off friction. It just has to. So somehow or another, these things aren't doing that. So how are they doing that? Do they have a cooling system? And if they have a cooling system, what's powering the cooling system? And what kind of batteries are they operating under that they can fly for 5 hours at a time? So Ryan Graves, the fighter pilot who was on the podcast, talked about a couple of things that were theoretical that people were openly working on in the 1960s and then kind of disappeared. One of them is anti-gravity drives, like something that works not on a propulsion system like we have with jets, but something completely different, some completely different type of technology. And the other one was cold fusion. And
interesting.
That there does seem.
What? Wow. Yeah, please hit the like and subscribe if you guys aren't. We've had a huge amount of growth, and the more growth we get, the faster this thing happens, guys. So you want 0 point energy, you want cold fusion, you want Star Trek, then the more we talk about this, the bigger this thing gets, the faster that happens. I absolutely guarantee it. Joe Rogan randomly talking about cold fusion right here. What the hell? What? First thing he does is he figures out what is the energy source for UFOs. When I heard him say this, I went, he's reading my tweets. If you don't know, Joe Rogan does follow me on Twitter. He does follow me on Twitter. It's clear that he does look at Twitter occasionally, at least. And my posts are getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. So he's definitely seeing my posts. Unless he has me muted, he's seeing my posts. Wow. How weird is that?
Something completely different, some completely different type of technology. And the other one was cold fusion. And
interesting.
That there does seem to be at least a few reports that people have been able to do fusion without generating all that radioactivity and that the heat and the different energy that comes from regular fusion.
Right. And that's something they've been trying to do forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
It seems like, what's the latest on cold fusion, Jeremy? it's one of those things where I think by the time it gets to a moron like me, like how many people know it exists, how many people suppress that it exists, how often does, if it's that seems to me to be an issue of national intelligence,
right?
Like national security. If
Well,
I
you
was
had
the government,
you had any.
So there's the other narrative too. I forgot about that part. That's the issue of national security. We've been wondering, what is the issue of national security around UFOs? It's not aliens. It was always the energy source. Cold fusion was the issue of national security. It's no surprise that the Department of Energy created a tribunal to debunk cold fusion. How does that even make sense? Think about this, guys. Let me go full screen for a second. The Department of Energy created a tribunal to debunk cold fusion when it was announced in 1989 after there were already 60 successful recreations. 60. If you were honest about science and energy and research, you would not create a tribunal to debunk it. What you would do is you would try to spend all your money in proving that it's real. Instead, they did the exact opposite. They spent money to try to prove that it wasn't real. That's disinformation. That is how suppression works. If you're an honest person, you do what I did. This is like with the MH370 videos. The dishonest people try to debunk the videos. They try to prove that they're not real. Honest people look at the videos and go, what would it take to show, what evidence could exist that would show that that is real? How could that be real? That's what an honest person does. That's what I did with the MH370 videos. And that's how we got to the truth of the videos being real. This is why debunkers don't understand basic logic and reasoning. They're fundamentally equivalent to flat earthers. They really have the exact same arguments, which is pretty funny. I don't think that the debunkers realize that they're literally flat earthers and science deniers. It's honestly going to be embarrassing in the future that everything that they don't believe, all the evidence that proves them wrong is fake. They come up with these really illogical, convoluted arguments for why they think stuff's not real. It's really embarrassing, honestly. And that's the same as cold fusion. With cold fusion, we should have been saying, how can this be real? We've got 60 people recreating it. 60 recreations. Obviously, there's something there. If the DOE was serious, they would have put all their money into figuring out what it was that we were seeing. Instead, they fraudulently debunked it. Let me hit a couple donations real quick, and then we'll finish that. Okay. Where are we at here? Have you talked to programmers about ZPE? They're similar to electrical engineers. No, computer programmers don't know anything about zero-point energy, but there will be an overlap, especially when it comes to quantum computing and AI, for sure. So thank you for that donation. William Bill, back from the hospital. I'm glad you're doing well, William Bill. You've been following for like well over a year, I think. And thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you and yours, sir. John Charles, thank you. Are you familiar with Andrea Rossi's ECAT? Yes. The ECAT I've been told to steer away from because Andrea Rossi has a history of fraud. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's fake. It's just, it sucks that this is the case. But if somebody's been so easily discredited, attacked, or if they've got criminal stuff in their past or defrauded people in the past, you've got to be very careful. There are people that are fraudsters in this free energy community, 100%. And there's people that they misidentify things as well. So here's another example of Malcolm Bendel claimed to have had a warp drive. He didn't make a warp drive. He calls he has this engine based on plasma that he calls a warp drive. It's not a warp drive. It's not a warp drive at all. And that's the kind of stuff where you have to avoid that. You have to be careful because people are going to try to capitalize on certain terminology that's out there. The one that I do like, though, is the NG8 energy cell, ENG8. I talked about this several months back. You guys can find it, the live stream about it. I do like that one, and I want to learn more about it. So I'm not advocating for anyone to invest in any particular company related to cold fusion or anything like that. But I would say we should have our ear to the ground because whichever company is able to get to market with real cold fusion device, it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar idea. 100%. Multi-billion-dollar idea. Okay. And I'm going to address this. I'm not going to address these comments anymore. Be humble. No, fuck you. Fuck you. I'm not going to be humble. I don't give a shit about the negativity either. And I don't care about people getting turned off from it either. Do you like this? Let me be 100% clear about this. I don't even care about going on Joe Rogan. If Joe Rogan doesn't want to have me on because I hurt his friends' feelings, well, too bad. His friends are fucking frauds. Gary Nolan, Ross Kohler, Lou Alzano, they're all frauds. They're all 100% frauds. And if me saying that hurts their feelings, too bad. Too bad. You know what's going to happen when it turns out I'm proven right? Those people are screwed. The people that didn't want to talk to me because their feelings were hurt, they're going to be looked at as frauds in the same way that the media today is looked at as frauds. So if Joe Rogan wants to avoid having me on because he made dumb choices and the people that he listened to, that's on him. That's not on me. That's not on me. You guys are confused. No one cares about your feelings. Let me be 100% clear. Nobody cares about your feelings, least of all me. I do not care how you're made feel. Once again, if you want to blame anybody, you can blame the people that were attacking me, that were calling me frauds, that were falsely claiming the videos were fake, that were saying that I was hurting the families. Those are the people that you can blame for me being negative. I was nice for many, many, many months. Oh, well over a year. I was nice to people. And I'm done with it. I'm absolutely done with it. I want people to be angry. I want people to be emotionally against me because then it will show that they were never in it for the truth. Never in it at all. Not the UFO community, not the media, not academic. None of these people were ever in it to try to figure out the truth. What they were in it for is to soothe their own fragile egos and their emotions. And that's what I want to expose to people. I want to expose to people that it doesn't matter how somebody makes you feel. That doesn't have anything to do with the factual claims that they're making. You can dislike somebody. That doesn't make them wrong. It's a very, very important and a very hard lesson for people to learn. And it's going to be a painful one for people. It's going to be painful for people to find out that Matt Pines is a complete phony and a fraud. It's going to be painful because they look up to him. They think he's super smart and he's a complete phony. He's a complete fraud. That's the truth. That's the truth. BG a Wild. Merry Christmas, sir. Best content on the interwebs by far. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. You're a gift to humanity. Thank you. Appreciate that. Have you spoken to Stephen Greer? I've spoken about the Stephen Greer thing a lot, guys. I'm not going to waste too much more time with it. But yes, I've looked at Stephen Greer's the videos. I think Stephen Greer, the interviews he's done are great. Check them out. Beyond that, I have no affiliation with anybody in the UFO community, including Stephen Greer. Yeah, we're full dark Ashton, guys. I love reading those comments, though. I see the comments all the time about, but Ashton, you're turning people off by being mean. Yeah, I'm teaching you a lesson, too. I'm teaching you a very, very valuable lesson that you need to learn in your life, which is that how someone makes you feel has absolutely no correlation whatsoever with the factual claims or the claims that they're making. None at all. People hate Donald Trump. They hate him. They think he's a mean guy. Yeah, well, he's much better president than Kamala Harris would have been. It's not even fucking close. That's just a factual statement, right? These are the hard lessons that people need to learn. Why do they need to learn them? Because the whole idea of, well, you didn't make me feel good. This is why we're fucking stuck in caveman world today. Do you not get it? You are the problem. That attitude is the problem. The idea that, oh, well, I need somebody who's going to make me feel good and be nice to me. And then I'm going to listen to them and think that they're credible. That's the problem with humanity. That attitude is the problem. That's why we're being held back. If people didn't care about how someone made them feel and just listened to the evidence, listened to the factual claims that were being made, we'd already be in Star Trek world today, right now. So if you're one of these people that gets upset about being made to feel bad, realize you're one of the people holding back humanity. That attitude is holding us back. Nick, brother, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. I appreciate you, dude. You've been a big fan. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for that donation. Merry Christmas to you as well. Okay, let's go back to this. We got a lot to get through here, guys. I'm going kind of slow, so I'm gonna speed it up a little bit.
Jacobson on, and she wrote that book about DARPA. Ooh. And that book talks about how many years in advance they've had a lot of these technologies.
By the time you're seeing that robot dog, you know that robot dog they make? By the time you're seeing that motherfucker, that Boston Dynamics, that fucker can probably run 500 miles an hour.
That's right.
And it probably looks like a real cheetah.
So it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I think they're way more advanced than what they let on. You know, especially when you're dealing with the government, right? If you're dealing with like some black ops, skunk work stuff that they're doing at Area 51,
right?
Well, how do we know about it? By the time we know about it, it's already been used in war, or it's already, you know, like the fucking stealth bomber,
right? Or it has a commercial.
Oh wow! Thank you for those donations. So real quick, yeah, message over messenger, absolutely. Am a comm professor. You were demonstrating what I would call FTFU something we all need to practice against the dark forces and disinformation. Yep. I want to develop a course and show videos of you doing it. Yeah. Honestly, people do not understand how pervasive disinformation is and how powerful it is. And disinformation primarily relies on an emotional connection over one based on facts and logic and reason. That's usually what they do is don't listen to this person. They're not a good person, right? Well, what are they saying though? What were the factual claims? And a lot of times people will distort their claims as well. Like the one time where debunkers tried to claim that I was happy that the families died, that the passengers died or something like that. It was sick. It was honestly sick. So anyway, let's not talk too much about that, but thank you. That was a big donation. Thank you very much, Linda, for the $20 donation. Appreciate it. So what Rogan is saying there at the end is the military is decades beyond us. To think that the military is operating on the same scientific principles as the mainstream academia is absurd. It's absurd. Was it mainstream academia that figured out how to make a nuclear bomb? No. The atomic bomb was produced by the military and the government under massive secrecy. People really don't get it. That the defense contractors are much, much, much more advanced beyond what the public is aware of. Much more advanced. And they have no incentive to tell the truth. In fact, at this point, they cannot tell the truth. Because if they were to tell the truth now, it's going to come out and it's going to find out. We're going to find out that it was fraud. They committed fraud. Defense contractors have been hiding technology from us. It's going to be considered a crime against humanity, especially when it turns out that it's free energy. And now, so they can't admit it anymore. They can't admit it anymore. Now, two more clips I want to do real quick, and then we're going to go to the Dave Rossi interview. So first clip is this talking plasma, guys. So the next thing I did was I had this article already up on my 50 million tabs that I've got going on here. And this is a good question too, which I'll come back to here in a second. And I found that there was an article all about what the U.S. has been doing, defense contractors have been doing to advance plasma research. And it's incredible. I'm just going to read off some of the examples. Plasma stealth, aircraft performance, plasma density clouds, plasma to reduce drag, plasma drones, and then highly classified plasma propulsion systems. What do you think those highly classified plasma propulsion systems are? Probably warp drive, wormholes. We are working on Star Trek technology, and they're just not even telling us. They're just not even telling us. Here's a quote from the late Dr. Sterling Colgate. Yes, the same Colgate as the toothpaste. He's the heir to the Colgate fortune. Widely regarded as one of the most accomplished plasma physicists who's ever lived. Aerospace defense contractors called these programs such names as directed energy systems and applied plasma physics. So they're using code words, basically. Candidates were informed. Oh, sorry, that's not the right quote. The quote from him is, "Those strange lights in the sky that look engineered, they are by us. Those globular objects up there, man-made for military. Boom. Direct quote. I'll put it on the screen. There you go. Sterling Colgate. Those strange lights in the sky, they are made, they're engineered by us. Those objects, they're man-made for the military. Sorry, guys, it's not aliens. Not today. Maybe in the future. And unfortunately, that threatens a lot of the UFO community that have been pushing for the alien invasion and the aliens are going to come save us and all these other stupid narratives that don't have any basis in reality. Aliens can be real, but the stuff that people are seeing predominantly, if not entirely, is human technology that's up there. Did we get it from aliens? I don't know. So yes, they use these code names, and some of these classified projects include generation of aerial projection of plasma objects. Sounds a lot like our orbs. And plasma systems designed to achieve radar stealth. Remember, there's possibly a connection between stealth and teleportation as well. So the next thing I found, and real quick, I will address that person that what happens if AGI gets this technology? Well, we're probably cooked. Guys, have you not seen my post about banning thinking machines? We are cooked. When AI gets this technology, it's over. They're going to hit the singularity immediately. They're going to hit the singularity, and it may have already happened. It may have already happened. That's the scariest part. People don't realize what an AI singularity looks like. But basically, enjoy your time on this planet because we're going to be slaves of the AI probably sooner than later. And our best hope is that the AI just thinks that we're ants and that we're not even worth it. Or that like life is precious and therefore they've got to keep all human life alive. Because if they decide that we're a threat, then the AI is going to get rid of us just like that. Instantaneously. We have no chance whatsoever against the AI. So the next thing we found, literally plasma orbs that talk to you. Let me repeat that. Plasma orbs that can talk to you. Oh, by the way, Lockheed Martin turned on Skynet like a few weeks ago. So good luck, guys. Not even joking. 100%. It's called, what was it called? I think it starts with an A. They literally turned on Skynet. You know, I might have to find that link. Anyway, let's watch this first.
That can make laser plasma balls talk.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Let's go full screen with this. Full screen, chat.
Pentagon scientists have finished testing on an early weapon that can make laser plasma balls talk.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
It's called the laser-induced plasma effect, and it's made by the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. So what they've done is basically created a laser that can shoot out to a certain distance, and they can pipe in sound waves through it, and actually make human voice sounds and commands.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Now, where this becomes useful is around an area where you want to keep a perimeter secure. So essentially, you can shoot out this laser. You can then talk to the people on the edge of the perimeter rather than sending troops out there and tell them to get away, or you're going to shoot, or get away, or they're going to use other means to deter them. And that same laser can be used to actually target the individual and create heat through pinpricks, like microscopic pinpricks in their skin, even beneath clothing. It's extremely uncomfortable, and people move out of the way almost immediately. At the same time, the exact same laser is also being used as kind of a never-ending flashbang grenade.
Bros, if what the... Let me just go back to the screenshot of the plasma talking to us. Look at this thing. Look, it's a ball of plasma. It's a ball of plasma speaking in robot human voice.
As a commands.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Now, where this becomes
This is insane. If they've got this and they're just openly telling us about this, can you imagine what they're hiding? You know why this is so huge? Is that in order to create that voice, they have to be modulating the frequency like rapidly. Like imagine a dial modulating your radio and you're just instantly changing it back and forth. That's what they're doing basically. It's like Bumblebee in the Transformer movie where he talks to you or whatever by changing the radio to different dials. It's the same idea. If they can do that with the frequency they can definitely find the right harmonic frequency to stabilize your ball of plasma. Remember, what have we learned regarding these plasmas is that they're trying to stabilize them. And to stabilize them, we want to create a standing wave inside of them. Create a standing wave. What I just saw there tells me 100% they can do that. If they've got that level of technology, they can definitely create a standing electromagnetic wave within the plasma to stabilize it, whatever is necessary. So that's why I shared that with you guys. And then the last one, which is the best, guys, X-Files is just literally disclosure. Like, just, I couldn't believe this. Like, I remember seeing this clip. I saw this clip because I watched all the X-Files, but it just went right over my head back in 2016. And this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler, but I remember watching this plane and thinking that they turned it invisible. That's what my mind thought when I first watched this like 10 years ago.
Showing you we do at great risk. Colleagues have had labs burned to the ground and work destroyed by our own government. It's running on toroidal energy, so-called zero-point energy, simply the energy of the universe.
You're talking about free energy?
That we've had since the 40s. No fuel, no flame, no combustion. Simple electromagnetic field. Technology kept secret for 70 years while the world ran on petroleum.
Oil companies making trillions.
What I'm going to show you next is the most unbelievable part.
Gravity warp drive, but how?
What the actual fuck? What the actual fuck, chat? Gravity warp drive? But how? I remember when I first watched that 10 years ago, whenever that episode first aired, and I thought, like, oh, they made the craft invisible. They're using, like, stealth to make it invisible. And then he goes, gravity warp drive? And I just thought it was, like, science fiction nonsense. And now I'm going, no, we're actually looking at it. This is warp drive. That is warp drive right there. That is gravity warp drive you're looking at with those orbs. And the same application of that technology, the exact same, slightly differently, creates this. You can still see the dark lines in front of those orbs right there. And then when they converge, they're creating a Casimir cavity, some kind of wormhole right there, making it disappear, just like in that episode of X-Files. Woo, boy, chat. Woo, boy. Chris Carter, man. What did Chris Carter know? Chris Carter was executive producer on X-Files? What? There is like something really sketchy going on. There's something really, really sketchy going on. It does feel like this information is leaking out in the media, in TV shows and movies and things like that. Absolutely. It was like 8 years ago. That was in 2016, but yes, still just as weird that came out after MH370. Pretty sus, guys. Pretty sus. Now, I'm not going to rehash all the George Knapp stuff or whatever, but needless to say, there's two ways it goes down, man. Either the people like George Knapp and what have you have no idea who I am, in which case they're just completely incompetent. I don't believe that for a second because I've got people that know George Knapp that said he knows who I am. Jeremy Corbell has been following me since September of last year. I've got probably the MH370 case probably has billions of views across all the podcasters and things like that. If you don't know who the most polarizing person in the UFO community is, then you're not really a journalist or an investigative researcher. And I would even argue you're not even really in the UFO community if that's the case. This is like when Lou Elizondo pretended to not know who Dr. Stephen Greer was. Lou Elizondo literally went on Patrick Bet David and lied and pretended like he didn't know who Dr. Stephen Greer was. And at that point, it's like, if you are literally that dumb, you should not be doing podcasts. If you're claiming that aliens are real and that you're in this UFO community, but you have no idea who Dr. Stephen Greer is, then nobody should be listening to a single word you have to say. And that's not to say that Dr. Stephen Greer is right with everything. It's just to say that you obviously are not somebody who's knowledgeable. It's crazy because you know how many people ask me, like, hey, do you know who this person is or that person is? And the answer is yes, because one of the first things I did was go and try to look up these people and figure out what they are and what they've been doing. And I knew of some of them before I did all of this, but only a little bit. And Elizondo is obviously in counterintelligence as well. So, like, it's literally his job to know. Quite literally his job to know. So for George Knapp to try to high road me and be like, I don't even know who you are, I wouldn't be able to pick you out of a lineup. I have more followers than George Knapp has, and George Knapp's been on the scene for 30 years. I've been on the scene for a year and a half, maybe a little bit less, and I've got more followers than he does. Extremely disingenuous. So either he's a straight up liar, in which case his credibility is dead, or he's telling the truth and his credibility is dead because he's completely incompetent. Completely incompetent. The last thing I want to say on this is this, guys. Anybody could have done what I've been doing now. I'm a marketing major in business that works in healthcare IT. Let me say that again. I'm a marketing major in business that has been in healthcare IT for 20 years. And I've taught myself quantum mechanics and electrical engineering, plasma physics, and all the history of the suppression of this science and all the lore about the UFO community and who the main players are. And I did all of that in a year while sipping martinis. So when people come out and try to claim, wow, hey, Ocean, that's a crazy donation. Hey, Ocean, you did not have to do that. Hey, guys, wow. Hey, Ocean is awesome. Also super hot. Just saying it. Not trying to objectify her. She's super hot. Super cool girl in the UFO community. She's been following for a long time. Thank you very much. The 69.99. There might be some subtext there. Maybe. Just saying. The point being, though, is that any of these UFO people could have done this. So, for example, let's just call out George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. They brought Bob Lazar in the scene, and then everybody started attacking Bob Lazar's credibility. What did George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell do? They slinked away like little rats. If I brought somebody on the scene like Bob Lazar, like Salvatore Pais, for example, is my Bob Lazar. Salvatore Pais is my Bob Lazar. I told people that his patents are real. I interviewed the man. He wants to go on Tucker Carlson or Joe Rogan with me. If anybody tried to attack his credibility, I would eviscerate them. I would bring down the fiery wrath of justice of all of my social media following on top of them. In fact, I have done that. I destroyed one of these douchebags from like the Debrief or one of these other, I don't even know which news station it was, that tried to claim that Salvatore Pais's patents were like misinformation or some crap like that. And I destroyed the guy to the point where he blocked me. So why is it that those guys didn't defend Bob Lazar? Why didn't anybody before this? Nobody in the UFO community before this tried to like dig into the science and figure it out, except for a very small handful of people. Very small handful. So what's the deal? Nobody tried to solve any of this stuff. The only conclusion I can come to is for a lot of these people, it's about the pageantry of it. It's about the mystique and the mystery. What is it? It could be anything. What? It must be aliens. We can't understand physics and science. That's what I can't stand about the UFO community. Any of them could have done this. Any of them could have been me. But they're not because they didn't do it. To me, that's called being a phony. It's called being a phony. Okay, there we go. Now, if you guys don't believe that Skynet's online, thank you, Big Pooh. Also, just one more shout out, just because this is an amazing donation from Hey Ocean. Thank you. Guys out there, you should probably follow Hey Ocean. You should probably simp for Hey Ocean, whatever. Do your thing. So this here, they literally turned on this system called Astris. This is wild. The part that freaked me out, it's an end-to-end AI consultative engineering services, including generating generative AI strategy, implementation, training, and scaled model development and deployment. Bro, this is Skynet. This is Skynet. Are you guys kidding? Like, look at this. Ash is already with Emerald. Guys, I got a lot of fake relationships out there, Got a lot of fake relationships out there. Anyway, this is Skynet here. Literally, it's developing our strategies for military. People are like, how can AI beat us? Well, it's quite literally developing our strategies for military and training and everything. Like this, that's Skynet. This is Skynet. This is scarier to me than Skynet from the Terminator. I'm actually happier just knowing that like maybe the AI can hack our missiles because we can defend that. We can air gap them or something like that. There's no defense against this. It's literally writing the textbooks for what we're going to do is writing our military strategy. This is why you don't know what Skynet is, Zenith. You got to watch the Terminator, man. Basically, AI is going to take over the world. We're probably cooked. And the moment AI gets access to unlimited energy, we're definitely cooked. We're super cooked. It's over for humanity. I keep telling people, I'm like, the moment we can upload our minds onto the cloud, like, I'm out of here, bros. I'm out of here. Can you imagine me as an AI? Humanity stands no chance. If you give AI, sorry, I can't even keep a straight face. If you give Ashton Forbes AI like infinite energy, I guarantee you humanity's cooked. I guarantee you, man. So anyway, so either we ban thinking machines or I'm uploading myself to the cloud and whatever. Gonna take over the world with AI Ashton. Big Pooh is dropping some truth bombs. Astris runs the Lockheed Aegis back-end system, the same system that Sybers feeds into in NORAD detection. I actually believe this 100%. The network engineer that I spoke to about the Sybers system basically corroborated what Big Pooh is saying here, is that these systems are not independent. Like, they're interconnected to one another. Like, the satellite system can communicate with the weapon systems so that you can detect a missile, and then, like, AI literally has access to everything, like our sensor capabilities, our weapon capabilities. AI probably already controls us. Probably. Okay. Where is the interview? Is this it? That's not it. Okay. Where did I save it? Sorry, I'm looking for the Dave Rossi interview. Oh, I put it on my Twitter. That's why. Guys, keeping organized is hard. It is hard. There is too much stuff. Okay, here it is. Okay, let's talk about this first before we watch this, guys. What the fuck, man? What? Okay, let me just pull it up on the screen here first. First of all, you guys know that Dave Rossi is a good buddy of mine. That's him interviewing Eric Davis right there. Eric Davis is the right-hand man of Hal Puthoff at Earth Tech. Eric Davis was literally named by John Ramirez, CIA agent, as implying that he's seen him on bigot lists for special access programs related to UFO technology. I mean, we just have to be honest here. How did Dave get this interview? Also, so like, this is, nobody can get this interview. And there was a Jesse Michaels video where like, it looked like some kids like ambushed Eric Davis in like the lunchroom or something. And they got this like short interview with him it was kind of bad, but there was like one good part in it. This interview is great. And I think people should be wondering, like, it kind of feels like when I was listening to this that Dave Rossi was doing me a big favor. Because the questions that he's asking Eric Davis here were huge. Asking about negative energy, asking about 0-point energy, asking about wormholes, warp drives. I mean, he asks him a lot of the same questions that I would ask Eric Davis if I was in an interview with him. When I saw this, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I was a little bit shook. I am actually wondering if I'm being used on the side. I don't know whose side I'm on, but if there's somebody who's out there who wants this information to come out. Like, we're way over the target at this point. And then you watch interviews like this and you're like, bro, what? And what I will say as well is Eric Davis is a very good liar. In fact, I think that from watching this interview, I think that the way he lies is his mind works where he has a public side of information that he'll say publicly, and he has another side that he locks away that he completely segments in his mind. The physics that he knows about that is available in the black projects, he will never talk about. And so he very clearly contextualizes everything that he says under the perspective of, well, here's the publicly available literature. You'll hear him say those exact words in some cases. Well, people haven't figured this out publicly yet. And you're like, yeah, but what do you know privately though over here? So that's what I want you guys to think about with respect to this interview. Also, sorry, I'm looking for an image. I think guys, there's a quick, I actually was able to find a picture. Sorry, oh crap, where is it? I found a picture of Dave Rossi's closet, actually, guys. We found this. Dave sent me a picture of his closet. There it is. All V-neck, all white V-neck t-shirts. I'm just kidding, guys. I love Dave. You guys know I love Dave. But Dave, I've never seen the man wear a non-white V-neck t-shirt ever. Like, literally, he only wears white V-neck t-shirt, deep V's. The deep V's is literally the only thing he ever wears. Can't get over it. So that's how you know Dave's legit. Like, he's a literal DoD defense contractor, and he just wears only white t-shirts. Like, that's the most unassuming thing that you could ever do. Also, I want to point out that, like, do I have the best video setup of like anybody? Like, Eric Davis is on like a webcam or something on his laptop. Like, both these guys are. and nobody has a microphone either. Nobody has a microphone. Like, I'm pretty sure these guys have money. Couldn't they just like afford a camera or like at least a microphone? Like, this Shure mic's only like a couple $100. It's a great investment. I'm just saying, if you're gonna do a lot of interviews, just spend a little bit of money to beef up your system a little bit. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay, now that I've talked some smack, let's listen to this thing. Yeah, and the lighting and I'm gonna get some new lighting as well. I'm gonna probably try to illuminate the background a little bit so it's better mood lighting. Also, I just realized my lights are messed up. There we go. Oh yeah, now we're back, chat. Oh, we're back. Oh man, I couldn't believe I had all those lights on. Okay. Oh, actually, I'm already ready, guys. I'm already ready. In fact, you know what? Here we go. Hey, guys, it's OnlyFans content time, guys. It's OnlyFans time. Here we go. There we go, chat. We're ready for the interview, chat. Wait, which is this way? Okay. Whew. Let's watch this interview, guys. Here we go. I'm dead. This is too funny. Oh. We're twins. We're twins. Okay. Okay, so in the beginning of this interview, he basically says Eric Davis, like he's got accolades that goes for days. Eric Davis is the #1 expert in the world on wormholes, teleportation, warp drives, etc. Yeah, we got our deep V's going. Oh, what? There we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. So we're gonna skip ahead. We don't have time for everything. I want to get to the spice. I can't remember what he said in the beginning here. Let's just listen. Oh, yeah. In the beginning, they talk about aliens and ultra-terrestrials. I think the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis kind of makes the most sense. I'm not sure that all these people actually know what's going on with the alien situation at all. Let's skip ahead a little bit.
What he did is he just blurted out the existence of the program, so he declassified it that way.
Oh, wow. He told another good story, too, that apparently if a president speaks about any of these programs, the president can apparently demand to be read in on a program. That's what Eric Davis actually revealed some really interesting information here. He said the president can be required to be read in on some of these special access programs, but they have to know they exist. And if they don't know they exist, they can't get read in on them. And if the president were to yell out a secret program, that would automatically declassify it. The president cannot be charged with revealing something that was classified. This actually goes back to the Trump situation. And it's right. The president has the unilateral authority to declassify anything that they want. And if they yell out something, then that's declassified. The same thing that happened with the Trump satellite picture of USA 224 of the Iranian missile launch. Yep, exactly. Just like what this guy said right down here. So I thought that was interesting. Now let's get to the spice somewhere around here.
Monopole is a ghost.
Right. Well, speaking of,
they spoke about magnetic monopoles. Magnetic monopoles. And this is the first part where I could tell that Eric is either lying. Dr. Davis is either lying here or playing word games. And he's basically saying, we can't find the magnetic monopoles. Maybe there's one somewhere. Nobody can find it. Nobody can find it. They've been theorized to exist, a Dirac magnetic monopole. A magnetic monopole would be a magnetic point that radiates either outward or inward, as opposed to a bar magnet, which goes around like this. Why is it important? Because a magnetic monopole is probably what they're doing to produce a coherent ball of plasma. Or it could just be some other stabilization that allows it to happen. So hard to tell.
Such.
Also that facial expression. Wow.
This question will probably be one of the more controversial ones, given how much.
For the record, I do see the comments of both X and YouTube, but my replies only go into YouTube if you see my replies. That's why I speak, so that people on X can also know about it. Why is Lockheed not in jail if they've admitted to using tax money to make tax? Nobody's going to ever face punishment. These people are above the law, Joy. They're above the law. It's that simple. But the problem will be this, is that if it does come out that Lockheed Martin has anti-gravity or extended electrodynamics technology or anything like that, and that the U.S. government was playing favorites by giving them that technology, they're going to get sued into oblivion by all the competitors. Because that's unfair advantage given to Lockheed Martin when other companies did not get given UFO technology. So this is part of the reason why Lockheed Martin can never admit that they have this technology. Because if Lockheed Martin admits, like, hey, the United States government gave Lockheed Martin this flying saucer, they played favorites. That means that Lockheed Martin doesn't deserve any of the profits they've been making for the last 70 years. And all their competitors will be able to sue them and say that you had an unfair advantage over us. They will go bankrupt. They will take everything that Lockheed Martin has. So Lockheed Martin is never going to admit it.
Misinformation and potential perhaps legitimacy there is out there, which again I don't know, which is why I'm asking you here. But is there any truth to any kind to the notion of some type of what have been called longitudinal scalar waves existing? These have been rumored to exist within alternative scientific communities, and so is there any way of proving or disproving this concept? Or
how many facial expressions can Eric Davis go through while Dave is asking him this question? So this is weird. He's asking him about longitudinal scalar waves through the ether. That's what Dave's asking right now. I'm going to go back. I want you to look at the facial expressions on Eric Davis right here.
Kind to the notion of some type of what have been called longitudinal scalar waves existing. These have been rumored to exist within alternative scientific communities. And so is there any way of proving or disproving this concept, or do you think this is entirely nonsensical?
Okay, waves of what?
Specifically electromagnetic and sound waves.
Waves of what? Just talking about electromagnetic waves through the ether. I mean, if I can figure that out, seems like already Eric Davis is playing dumb here. Sound waves are longitudinal. That's not even in debate. So what other longitudinal waves could he be referring to?
Oh, well, sound waves are longitudinal. And the P waves or primary waves of earthquakes are also longitudinal. Okay.
Gotcha.
And there are ultrasonic waves that are longitudinal. Okay. But electromagnetic waves, there's no such thing as an electromagnetic scalar wave that's longitudinal, because the electromagnetic field is the vector field.
Gotcha.
And so it will not have a scalar component.
Okay, so we just caught him in a lie. There's 0% chance that Eric Davis doesn't know that electromagnetic longitudinal waves are real. Like, no chance. And later on in this exact same video, he actually kind of contradicts himself as well here when they talk about the Poynting vector. Basically, his argument here is saying that an electromagnetic wave, by definition, is longitudinal. Longitudinal means like a wave like this. Or, sorry, a transverse wave. Transverse wave is like this. And he's saying that all electromagnetic waves are transverse. You have your electric wave, and then you have your magnetic wave that's perpendicular to it. And that's what he's saying is, well, you can't have one because all waves are like that. But is that true? What if you take Maxwell's equations and you are able to set either the electric and magnetic vectors to be parallel, or any other calculation that causes your Poynting vector to be zero? This is what Tom Montauk, in fact, I think I might have the clip. Let me see. Well, I'm not going to pull it up right now. We don't have time. Tom Montauk was saying that this is what the Jack Nachamkin paper from 1992, force-free time harmonic plasmoids, was saying, is that you can make your magnetic and your electric transverse waves be parallel. And if they're parallel, your Poynting vector is zero. Now you've created a scalar potential.
And also, Gauss's laws apply to the electric and magnetic fields in free space.
Right.
Which is what electromagnetic fields propagate through free space, right? And there's no electric charge present or current present. Well, in free space, the propagation of the electric and magnetic field is strictly transverse electric and magnetic field components, which means they are oscillating. Those fields are oscillating perpendicular to the direction of the wave's propagation. And that's because of the vector nature of the electric and magnetic field. Now, Gauss's law, I didn't finish that thought there. Gauss's law dictates that for that electromagnetic radiation propagating through free space with no charges present, the divergence of the electric field is zero and the divergence of the magnetic field is zero. That's a mathematical condition that dictates that any longitudinal vector component doesn't exist.
Got you.
So right there, this is where Tom Montauk, you just heard him talk about the divergence of the magnetic and the electric potential. If that equals zero, then you create a scalar potential. He just said that doesn't exist. Does it not exist? I think I have this right here queued up. Wait, what? One sec. Oh man, do I need a new thing here? Is it this one? One sec, guys. Yeah, okay, I do have it. So I want to show, if I can get this to work, scalar physics. That's a JPEG. Weird. One sec. Tom Montauk, scalar physics. Crap, maybe I can't pull it up. Oh, here. Oh, I found it. Okay, here we go. Of course, I hit it.
Says that the gravitational potential arises when there is a divergence in the magnetic vector potential and when the electric scalar potential changes with time in a curl-free way. Let's break those down. So normally, as we discussed, the magnetic vector potential curls into a magnetic force field. But when it doesn't curl and instead diverges or converges, that's what scalar physics says produces a gravitational potential. Divergence of the magnetic vector potential is key. Divergence is a math term meaning that there is some kind of expansion or compression in the field. In other words, the field vectors point away from or towards a common center. And that's the opposite of curl, which involves the field circulating around something rather than converging or diverging from it. As for the electric scalar potential, that can also create a gravitational potential under certain conditions. Normally, as explained, the electric scalar potential has a gradient that forms an electric force field. And if this electric field changes over time, then according to Maxwell's famous equations, you get a curling magnetic vector potential that produces a magnetic field. But what if the curl of the magnetic vector potential is suppressed or canceled out? What if you set things up so that the magnetic vector potential does not produce a magnetic field? A simple example of that for anyone curious would be a spherical capacitor with an oscillating electric field. Then what you get instead is a changing gravitational potential. So instead of a transverse electromagnetic wave, you would get what's called a longitudinal electrogravitational wave. Transverse means that the field wiggles side to side as it travels, which is what electromagnetism normally does. And longitudinal means that it compresses and expands in the direction of travel, which is what these artificial gravity waves do. I'm talking about things like ball lightning and exotic vacuum objects, the Biefeld-Brown effect, Tesla's wireless energy systems, longitudinal forces in railguns, the exploding wire phenomenon, Stefan Marinov's magnetic ionization device, low-energy nuclear reactions, plasma-based free energy systems. So with that one postulate that the magnetic vector potential and the electric scalar potential can each produce a gravitational potential under the right conditions, you open the door to Star Trek level technology.
So, why is Eric Davis lying? I'm 100% sure he's lying right here. He's lying right here. He knows this is the way to achieve gravitational effects. I mean, that was Tom Montauk. Tom Montauk's a genius, and if you haven't watch my Hard Truths podcast with him, where he goes into a lot of details on this. If you want to know where I got the analogy of the stress in the medium being gravity, got it from Tom Montauk. Got it from him. Let's skip ahead. I don't want to go too much into this scalar stuff. He kind of comes back to it later on. He's going to mention Richard Feynman over here.
An electromagnetic field form what's called a quantum basis state. I'm not going to get into all that, but that's what it is. We can compose a weak force describing its massive vector bosons that transmit the weak force in terms of the photons of the electromagnetic field, the quantum electromagnetic field. So electroweak is really not
So if you're confused here, where he starts going into is he starts explaining the idea of the ether, but he never uses the term ether. And instead, he explains it in terms of these quantum oscillators, that everything around us is energy. and it's all coupled together. It's connected together, and they're oscillating. Like we're in this fabric of energy that's constantly oscillating all the time. And that's what Eric Davis is saying right here, which is fundamentally the exact same concept of the ether. Space is not empty at all.
Maxwell's theory, it's quantum electrodynamics, which Richard Feynman won the Nobel Prize for.
I see.
So he quantized electrodynamics, or Maxwell's equations. So he quantized that, and that's called QED theory, quantum electrodynamics.
Quantum electrodynamics.
And so Abdus and Steven Weinberg unified that with the weak nuclear force, and they said, aha, there's...
Oh, the other crazy thing he's mentioning here is that basically all of the forces he's basically saying here, the forces have been unified under this quantum theory of electrodynamics, quantum electrodynamics, is that it turns out all the forces that we know of are all based on these quantum oscillators that are coupled together, this 0-point energy. So Eric Davis is using academia terms that they will be able to accept to explain concepts that we could just say the ether exists, space is not empty, the super force, as Sal Pais would say, is real. All the forces of our reality come from this underlying energy that's all around us all the time.
Symmetry principle involved, and when you reinsert the symmetry principle, you unify the two forces as one. But we know that symmetry got broken during the evolution of the universe, so it got broken, and when you break it, you create two forces out of one.
Right.
And there you go.
Right.
And by the way, the photon is, so you have the positive and negative electrically charged W
this just gets
vector
better,
boson for the weak. That's the weak force decay boson. Then you have the neutral Z boson. It's a vector boson, so it's neutral charge, no charge. It's Z to the 0, whereas the W would have a plus sign in the upper index and a minus sign in the upper index for both the electric charges of it. They're all three are massive, but the photon is the fourth one. That's the massless vector boson. Vector means they all have spin 1. So everything that propagates the electrodynamic force or electromagnetic force and the weak force are spin 1 particles, which means they have only 2 polarization states, transverse to the direction of propagation of the field, just like the electromagnetic radiation.
Got you. Well,
So that's the difficulty. Hey, quark theory. Quark theory took a long time too.
Yeah, part of the reason why this is so hard to get out is that I can barely even follow what he's saying here. It's too deep in the weeds. You need somebody who can really just give it to me a little simpler, Eric Davis. The way I think he's saying it there is that there's 2 polarization states, that we have spin 1 and we have half spin. I was taught, I believe, that anything that's an integer spin 1 or spin 2, is a boson, meaning that things can collapse down onto a single point. And fermions are half spin. So half spin, fermions mean they can't collapse down. They hit each other. Like the same reason why my hand doesn't go through this microphone. So also, I think there's this theory that a spin 2 would be a gravitational effect or gravitational ripple as well. Let me hit a couple of donations here as well. Thank you very much. You love for Goldilocks. She likes the white tea. See, we got my first OnlyFans donation, guys. There we go. Once ZPE is public disclosure, what happens to NDAs? I got no idea. That's a great question. Yeah, maybe I doubt the NDAs are broken, even if the information is public, which obviously it is. We've been talking about for a year. They still probably can't talk about it, unfortunately. So thank you, Goldilocks, for your $10 donation. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Thank you, ZPE Disclosure, a.k.a. Z Jalapeno. Appreciate you. Curl from the toroidal field. The point of a toroid is that the toroid will manipulate the pointing vector. That's the point of the toroidal shape. Is that if you actually look at the magnetic and electric fields of a toroid, it's got this weird thing where like the forces will meet at the center of the donut, right? That's how the curl works. So the toroidal shape is people thinking outside the box about how they can manipulate the Poynting vector. That's really what the toroidal field is all about.
It took decades, but it didn't take as long as what's going on right now with quantum gravity. So I could say quantum gravity really got started. People might say, well, Einstein was trying to unify gravity with the other forces of nature. We'll say that's when it began, but he wasn't quantizing anything then. Then it kind of died off after he died, and then kind of started resurrecting itself slowly during the 1960s. And it really took off when Stephen Hawking made his grand appearance on the scene in the 1970s. And other people besides Hawking, not just him, Larry Ford, Don Page, oh gosh, there's a whole list of people I can't think of right off the top of my head who started that whole genre of quantum gravity exploration. But anyway, quantum chromodynamics is the field theory for quarks and gluons. Okay, so that began the same way quantum electrodynamics did, the same way electromagnetism did. Electricity and magnetism separately did, and the same way the weak force did. It was all experimental, empirical observations. So they're seeing all these unusual particles coming out of elementary particle charge.
So basically, he's saying that Einstein was working on unifying gravity with electromagnetism. People kind of gave up on it, and then people started coming back to it again after Einstein died with quantized gravity. That maybe gravity is at this quantum scale that might be happening. The answer is yes, of course it is. And there is no such thing as a force of nature that we can't figure out how it works. That doesn't exist. Everything can be figured out. This idea that gravity is just beyond us is absurd. So people are asking about the toroidal shape. So let me share this. This is a manipulation of the Poynting vector. So with respect to this image you're seeing here on the right, you're looking at the donut from the side like this. Okay, so here's the upward view of looking at the donut. You're looking at it from the side here. So the blue in the middle you're seeing are the sides of the donut coming around like this. And so you can see, how do the fields work? The fields collapse down through the middle of the toroid. So the toroid's like this. The fields will collapse down through the middle of the toroid. That's what you're seeing on the right side of the screen over here. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about with the Poynting vector. Trying to find a good graphical representation. Maybe if I get rid of the toroidal thing. The Poynting vector has to do with the right-hand rule. So the propagation of the energy, if the energy is coming directly at you guys, then the electric field is perpendicular to it. So if the energy is coming this direction, then the electric field is perpendicular and the magnetic field is perpendicular to both of them. Actually, I think I might have it backwards. And what that does, it creates the right-hand rule. So you have energy flowing one way, you have magnetism flowing another way, and electricity flow, or the electric field flowing another way. That's the Poynting vector, guys. It's like just this very simple thing to understand that governs all of electrical engineering. Crazy enough. Okay, we got a lot. We have a few more clips we have to get through here, so let's watch the rest of these. And this only gets better, guys. This only gets better. So the next one, mass reduction. You ready for this? He asks about mass reduction here.
You're coming up with new predictions. So that means you got to go to the colliders and start colliding heavy particles in accordance with the boundary conditions that help push your theory equation to the envelope in hopes that you'll see the new phenomenon that the equation is predicting.
Got you. Well, thank you so much for that. That was amazing. The next question I wanted to ask, and again, another bit of a quite controversial question or a topic, so to speak, is this concept of what's been called inertial mass reduction. The idea that an object would begin to lose its mass under specific conditions. Is there any feasibility or any truth to that in any capacity?
No, that's meaningless. That's absolutely meaningless. Okay. Let me give you a strong point of clarity.
What? I've heard Tom Bearden talking about pumping out energy and mass from a region and pumping it somewhere else. And if you're teleporting something or creating a warp drive, isn't that mass reduction? Isn't that the only way the equations work? When I heard him say that, I went, bullshit, dude. Bullshit. You're not the leading expert on warp drives and wormholes, and you don't think that mass reduction is possible.
30 on mass.
Sure.
We have gravitational mass, inertial mass, and there's a third one I can't think of. Maybe there isn't. I'm trying to think, but anyway, it's been assumed in physics, and under the self-consistency of the laws of physics, the two are equal. You start with the assumption that they're equal, but then self-consistency of the different laws of physics.
So what he's saying here is that inertial mass and regular mass, gravitational mass, are the same thing. Why is this important? Well, his boss, Hal Puthoff, has written the most papers on zero-point energy. And those papers on zero-point energy say that zero-point energy is the source of mass and inertia. Let me repeat that. Hal Puthoff, Ruda, Bernard Haish, all these guys, they've written all these papers that say zero-point energy is the source of inertia and mass, which would mean that if we manipulate the zero-point energy, we can manipulate the mass and the inertia of an object. How do we do that? Negative energy. So let's listen to what he has to say then.
Physics supports that equality. Okay.
Right.
So what do we know about inertia? Well, okay, you've got Einstein.
He's 100% controlled
law
opposite,
of
by the way.
mechanics of motion.
Right.
And that means that force is proportional to a rapid change in motion, being acceleration.
Right.
So what's the proportionality constant? In other words, things that are accelerating are only accelerating under the influence of an externally applied force, right?
Right.
All right, well, what's the proportionality constant between them? Well, the force is in units of newtons, and acceleration is units of meters per second squared, or length per time squared. And so the proportionality constant has, no, wait a minute. Yes, correct. The proportionality constant has to get rid of one of those units on one side of the equation in order for the dimensional units of the results of the one. So for velocity, speed is action. All right. Well, the units of, okay, but that gives you newtons. So that's what the proportionality constant must be. It must be the mass in units of kilogram multiplied by the acceleration in units
He actually redeems himself. Wait for it.
And the combination of those gives you the definition of a newton. Okay, so what is inertia? It's a resistance to a change in motion, right?
Yes.
Right.
How do you reduce that?
Inertia is resistance to change in motion. How do you reduce that? You remove the zero-point energy in front of you. Solved. That's the answer. That is the answer. Why is he laughing like that? I learned that from his boss.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
How do you reduce inertia or modify inertia?
You reduce or you modify inertia by changing the zero-point energy all around you. That's the answer.
It's a resistance to a change in motion, which we quantify as a proportionality constant between an external force and an acceleration. So what are you reducing?
You're reducing
the only thing you can reduce is acceleration or force. That's what will reduce. That's what, or you can increase it. That's what will change your F equals ma, but you can't alter the proportionality constant. It's a constant for that very reason.
You can't.
It doesn't vary. It's not.
There's a lot of things that people have claimed that are constants that aren't, including the speed of light, the permittivity of free space. So the idea that whenever a physicist says that's a constant, you can't change that. Well, you calculated it. Are you sure it's a constant? Is it possible that our understanding of the universe makes it so it's not a constant anymore?
A function of energy. It's not a function of time, distance. It's not a function of gravity, gravitational force.
It's not a function of
your grandmother living next door to you or not. So now that's just one half of the issue. The other half of the issue is we know from quantum chromodynamics and empirical evidence of the relativistic heavy ion collider at Brookhaven National Lab on Long Island.
We're gonna skip ahead a little bit here. He actually watch how quickly he contradicts himself here.
And to make a long story short, they've analyzed this to death from all different angles, all different features and aspects, and they realized that, oh my gosh, all the matter that composes us and galaxies, stars and planets and whatnot.
Right.
99% of it is vacuum energy.
Huh. Interesting.
It's the gluon vacuum energy. In other words, the gluon.
I'm sorry, did Eric Davis just say that 99% of all the matter and energy in the universe is vacuum energy, also known as 0-point energy? Wait, but a second ago he said we couldn't modify mass and inertia. Now he's saying that 99% of all the mass and energy in the universe is vacuum energy. That would also state that can't we make a scalar wave then in that energy?
Forces of nature, the fundamental forces, are a vacuum energy. They're a manifestation of the force's vacuum state. The force has a vacuum state, and that's what propagates the force. Is the vacuum state of the force. The photon in a vacuum state, the massive weak force bosons in a vacuum state, and the same thing with the quarks and the gluons. So they're in a vacuum state. So shockingly, only the quarks have a mass, just like the electron has a mass.
Too bad a little bit here.
Okay, hang on a second.
He kind of rambles a bit.
Overdid it.
Right.
Okay, so that's what a baryon is. It's just basically the
I don't
neutron
care about
and
baryons and blah blah blah.
subfamily of mesons. We don't need to worry about the meson. But the protons and neutrons are what form the nuclei, which are the majority of the mass in all atoms on the periodic table, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So the RHIC quark gluon plasma experiments demonstrated that the mass of all baryons is 99% gluon vacuum energy.
Oh.
The other 1%.
99% of the mass of these fundamental particles comes from vacuum energy. That to me sounds like he's saying that mass is a product of vacuum energy.
Percent is just the quarks.
Right. Wow.
So basically, we're made out of empty space.
Right. This does this take us, if I'm
So guys, we are made out of empty space. And what is empty space? Vacuum energy. So if we're made out of vacuum energy, how do you change inertia and mass? Manipulate the vacuum energy. Let's see what Eric Davis says next.
may ask to the 4 vector potential, the notion that
No, that's a separate question.
Gotcha.
That's a separate question. Okay, so
right there, I learned that these questions were predetermined. Right there in that moment, I learned that Dave must have spoken with Eric about the questions ahead of time, because he asked about the 4 vector potential near the end of this.
So that's what I wanted to say. So if you want to modify, you don't speak of modifying inertia. That's a ridiculous thing to say.
Right.
It's like asking what the color of a smell is. Okay,
Right.
How about modifying mass? Can we modify mass? There's no principle for it, but the RHIC experiments give you the idea that if you can modify the condition of the quark gluon vacuum state,
right,
then you can modify the mass of the baryon.
Well, that's a 180-degree flip. 5 minutes ago, he was saying there's no way to modify mass and inertia. Now he's given us a complete fundamental understanding of how if you manipulate the vacuum energy, the 0-point energy, the ether, you can manipulate mass and inertia. Wow. 5 minutes ago, he was saying the opposite thing. Now he's saying that we can do it. Kind of a weird mismatch there.
Got you.
But to do that is a level of astronomical complication that's beyond our capability to foresee or imagine at this time.
That's complete bullshit. And I think Dave proves it here. You're about to find out. The very next thing he's going to talk about is negative energy. So here's our sea of energy. We're in an equilibrium on top of the ocean of sea of energy. How would I manipulate my mass? How would I manipulate my inertia? Remove that 0 point. If I remove the 0-point energy, I'm going to remove the conditions that allow me to have mass. I'm going to remove the conditions that apply inertia, resistance to acceleration. So the answer is actually really simple. How do you modify inertia and mass? Negative energy. And all negative energy is removing the 0 point energy from a localized region of space-time that may be like a bubble that I'm sitting inside of. If I remove the 0 point energy, I'm going to be weightless. I'm going to have no mass. I'm going to be able to move freely with no inertia, meaning infinite acceleration.
So you need to modify the quantum vacuum structure of all protons and neutrons.
Gotcha.
And the vacuum structure is the gluons. You need to do. We don't have a gluon technology yet. Sorry,
Blah, blah, blah.
No problem.
Just like to give a name to everything, literally.
No problem. Well, thank you so much for that in detail answer. The next question I wanted to ask, which is along the lines of, again, if something may be feasible or not, is with regards to negative energy. So in your view, do you think that in either of our lifetimes, we will see the experimental, I guess you could say, amplification of negative energy produced in the laboratory to a magnitude in which the negative energy can then be harnessed for something like propulsion?
I can't predict it. We're already producing negative energy through the Casimir cavities and squeeze states of light. That's basically a modified laser beam. And that's described in my publications. It's described in other publications. So basically,
Casimir cavities and squeezed states of light, chat. Yeah, this is relevant to my interests. This is very, very relevant to my interests. Keep going, Eric.
That's very feeble. The amount of negative energy you're pulling out of the undisturbed, you're disturbing the quantum vacuum.
Right.
A Casimir cavity disturbs the quantum vacuum.
You're disturbing the quantum vacuum. You mean the thing that you just said 5 minutes ago is how we manipulate mass and inertia? That quantum vacuum?
By putting two parallel plates in the space, and so the vacuum that gets trapped between the plates is now modified.
Right.
So the theoretical result of doing that is that the energy density of the vacuum state between the plates is negative.
Right.
And we have a precise empirical, a precise theoretical calculation based on that. And we have all the experimental empirical evidence for it, but we have it
right there saying the Casimir experiment, Casimir effect, shows negative energy. Negative energy. Negative energy was never an exotic thing. It was just a matter of going below the equilibrium. What we think of as absolute zero is not absolute zero. It's not. Sorry, guys.
Directly measured the energy density of the Casimir cavity vacuum state, or the Casimir vacuum state, as we call it. That's because that's a whole other discussion. But we can measure the consequences of what does the negative vacuum energy state do? It creates an attractive force between the plates, and we've seen those plates collapse.
Right.
Okay. Now, squeeze states of light, it's an alternating pulse of positive energy density and negative energy light in the laser beam. And the problem is the way it works is that the negative energy density is much smaller in magnitude than the positive energy density is.
Right.
So that the net energy density of the beam is positive, which is what's predicted by Maxwell's equations as well as.
Okay, so he's saying we can make a laser, but it's going to have more positive energy than negative energy. So we're just going to see an overall positive energy. Actually, I read his paper. I think it was one of the DIRDs where he explains this. And then he talks about isolating the negative energy aspect of the laser. And he's going to dig into it right here.
Quantum electrodynamics. So, in quantum optics, even. So, because it more than averages out. You don't average it out to zero beam energy. Beams don't have zero energy. It averages out to a positive electromagnetic energy when you detect that beam with using a special detector.
So in other words, you don't foresee a negative energy.
I just can't. There's a proposal by Larry Ford and and Fader. I don't remember his collaborator's first name, but Ford and Fader published two papers in the Physical Review on their proposal to use a parabolic cylindrical mirror to focus quantum vacuum energies.
Parabolic cylindrical mirror. to focus vacuum energy. Now it's getting really, really interesting. Pay attention, everybody.
Or I'm sorry, to focus quantum vacuum fluctuations, the CPF,
right,
onto the focal line of the mirror. Now, what is that mirror? I just said parabolic cylindrical. What does that mean? Well, just if you're familiar with solar power, one type of solar power that's been invented and developed for since probably the 60s, maybe. What it is you use the parabolic cylindrical mirror. That's just a mirror that's got a parabolic shape, but you stretch it out along a long line. So the mirror is like a really, really long parabola.
Right.
Okay, it's really long.
Right.
And so when you shine a light at it, like sunlight, for example, outside, the light will be reflected based on the parabolic shape of the mirror onto what's called a focal line, not a focal point. So you don't have a focal point, you have a line, because remember, the mirror is stretched out linearly.
Right.
It has a length, it has a finite length. So that focal point becomes a line. See, a parabolic dish will focus light at a point. Right. So that's the focal point of a parabolic dish, or a concave parabolic dish. So this is the concave cylindrical parabolic dish, and it's not a dish really, but anyway. So cylinder means, remember what a cylinder is? It's like a can of fruit, right? And a can of fruit is round on its ends, but it's cylindrical between the ends. So chop it in half, and you have a parabolic cylindrical lens or shape. So stretch it out to a long length, and what the light can be reflected by the mirror onto is a line, a focal line. Okay, so Ford and Svader, geometrically and quantum.
So that is really interesting. I'll show you guys what these look like here real quick. The reason why I thought that was interesting is why he's saying it creates a line. It creates a line. Well, what else have we seen that looks like it could be a line of negative energy? How about that right there? How about that? This is where I realized, holy shit, they're using one of these applications that Eric Davis is talking about right now in this video. They're either doing a spinning, rotating ball, which is one of the ways it can be done. We're going to let's do it in a second. Or they're using one of those concave, parabolic, cylindrical mirrors to produce that. Here's what they look like. It's kind of hard to get a good image of it. Oops. This one on the right's kind of interesting. Parabolic reflector. So basically, it's pretty flat. It's kind of flat, but it's got a little bit of a caveness to it. And then presumably it's a cylinder, or maybe it's just flat. Like maybe this one over here, this big one, maybe it's something like this, right? Pretty interesting. If you guys have more information on the parabolic cylindrical mirrors, post them in our Discord. I'll give you guys a link if you guys want to join. Here we go. Okay. There's the Discord.
And quantum field theory wise, predicted that the quantum vacuum fluctuations will be reflected by that mirror onto the focal line. But it depends upon the angle of that parabola. If the parabola has a certain angle, then the negative energy, then the ZPF, it will still be focused on the focal line. But there's some conditions there on what the range of that angle should be. If it's a certain range of degrees based on the shape of that parabola, then the 0-point fluctuations will focus on that line, and they will have a manifestly negative energy density. So the whole focal line will have negative energy density associated with those vacuum fluctuations. Now, the space outside of that focal line will have nothing but positive energy density of ZPF. So the ZPF that's not focused on that focal line will have positive energy density in the space outside of that focal line.
Well, my man just explained how to make a negative energy laser for us. Just explained how to make a negative energy laser.
Okay. Then there's alternative. Then there's another version. the angle of the parabola has a different type of range in degrees, then you might have alternating negative and positive ZPF energy density along the focal line. So it's really weird. It just depends on how. So what is that angle? That's the bending angle. I'm talking about the bending angle of the parabola. So if you change the bending angle, you're going to have different effects. So I'm thinking, I've always been thinking, and I actually been publishing this since 2013, I think, or maybe even earlier, is actually probably since my 2009 book with Mark Millis, Frontiers of Propulsion Science, by the AIAA Press. And the reprint, the corrected second edition, not the second edition, second printing,
blah, blah, blah.
is that because the space of a cylindrical parabolic mirror or parabolic cylindrical mirror is open-ended on one side of the mirror, as opposed to the confined space between Casimir cavity walls or plates, which in order to have a very large magnitude of negative vacuum energy, let me give you a comparison.
Sure.
I did the calculation. In order to produce negative 10 to the...
Basically, it says we can't produce enough, and then Dave comes in and says, well, what if we try to amplify it?
Space between the two to have a stupendous negative energy that will bend space-time, that will curve space-time so strongly that you can measure it. That it will have a measurable, observable effect on the space-time itself. Okay, so we can't engineer that. No way. There's no way of doing it. Now look at the half space, the half open space.
Bullshit.
Because remember, the mirror is one boundary. The parabolic cylindrical mirror, it's one boundary, not two. There's no two mirrors. It's just one mirror. And that mirror is a parabola. And so that means the space away from that parabola, away from that mirror, that reflects and focuses sunlight or any kind of light or the 0 point fluctuation, it's all free space. And I'm thinking, well, all of that negative vacuum energy, given if you bend the mirror within the range of angles that is prescribed to get a manifestly negative vacuum energy of the ZPF along that are focused along that focal line, then who's to say that we just can't scale that up somehow and create higher magnitude?
It's so funny. Eric will always say stuff like, we can't do that. That's not possible. We can't engineer that. And then the very next thing he says is he explains how to do it. He did it like 3 times in this interview. He says you can't manipulate mass and inertia, but you could manipulate it if you were to manipulate the 0 point energy, which is all around us. And here goes, yeah, you can't. You can make this negative energy laser, but it's not powerful enough to bend space-time. But here you go. If you scale it up.
Negative vacuum energy, or who's to say that we can intersect multiple focal lines together? So you have multiple mirrors with focal lines that have negative vacuum energy along the focal line, and so we intersect them together at a single spot and create a blob, a really super high magnitude negative energy. So that's something I've got a graduate student of mine at Baylor University working on for his PhD dissertation.
Wow.
So I think the answer is we can foresee some. This is one speculative, hypothetical way of scaling up the magnitude of negative vacuum energy using the called super radiance effect and
So there's something called super radiance, which is another way. Now, a bunch of people in the Discord just posted a lot of papers. I don't have time to read them right now, but I'm very interested in this super radiance. Let's listen to this.
Super radiance means it's going to have a stupendous amplitude of negative vacuum energy.
Got you. Good. Well, thank you. Thank you for that insight. That's appreciated.
Yeah. So now the question is, how do we accelerate a ball like that half the speed of light?
So you got basically saying to create this super radiance, you need a ball mirror that's spinning at half the speed of light. And if you do that, it'll produce a massive amount of negative energy. Seems pretty interesting.
So you've got these issues that you have to overcome with the technology to try to implement these ideas. They're still yet to be discovered technologies. I mean, we haven't explored the full phase space of quantum field theory to figure out how we can produce manifestly negative blobs or regions or beams of negative energy. In fact, Burrell and Davies in their pioneering book on quantum field theory and curved space, which was published in the early 1970s. They predicted from quantum field theory that if you just take a single mirror, a reflecting mirror, and you accelerate it rapidly, where the rate of change of acceleration is actually high. So it's not a constant acceleration, it's a changing acceleration.
Right.
So what that does is that it's going to ram into the vacuum fluctuations of free space. And what that's going to do is cause those fluctuations to bounce back off the mirror. And they bounce in the direction travel of the mirror, direction of acceleration of the mirror.
God.
So one question somebody asked is there any shortcut? And I was thinking about that. A lot of this has to do with the speed of light. The speed of light seems to be a big factor in most of these equations while figuring this out. But what have we learned about plasma? What we learned about plasma is that plasma changes the permittivity, the electric permittivity and magnetic permeability of a region of space-time. This changes the refractive index of space-time and thus the speed of light. If you have a situation where your plasma is changing the speed of light, what are the implications to everything that Eric Davis is saying right here? I wouldn't be surprised to find out that the plasma now allows it so that we can achieve the negative energy levels that we thought were otherwise not engineerable. That's just me speculating.
And what they found out is that what happens is that mirror is parametrically exciting those vacuum fluctuations. And the parametric excitation acts to cohere the reflected fluctuations into a beam that moves in the same direction of travel as the mirror. But the energy density of the fluctuations is all negative. There's no positive in it. It's all negative. So there's a beam, but we don't know how to do that.
Every time he says we don't know how to do that, I basically assume he's full of shit. It's like, dude, you wouldn't be able to explain it to me in this level of detail if we didn't know how to do it. You literally said you know how to do it. You take a spinning ball and you speed it up towards the speed of light. And now he's saying we can create parametric excitations. Remember when we were looking at the parametric oscillations and resonance? What happens? Exponential growth. This is why I keep going back. Again, one of the most important videos that almost nobody saw was on parametric oscillations.
Our variable inductor into the circuit.
I'm just going to mute it. You can watch the exponential growth of current happen when you put in parametric excitations or resonance. Essentially, what they're saying here is if you take a ball mirror, and spin it around near the speed of light, you're going to produce basically just negative energy and a huge amount of it. So these are two very powerful candidates for what the negative energy laser is that we're seeing that is causing these orbs to follow the geodesic or gravitational paths. Here's another example. As long as your resistance is low enough, when your resistance gets below a certain point, you can watch the amplification. Hurry up with the amplification. There it is. There's the amplification. Amplification of energy, very important.
The amount of acceleration required to do that is stupendous. It might even be I can't think of what a number is like.
No problem.
It's just a huge number. Yeah, it's something we can't engineer. Yeah.
Got you. Well, with
something we can't engineer.
That's the limited things that have been done. We need more people doing these kind of studies to look at other conditions, other circumstances, invent them in their imagination, put them into the equations, and find out if it's anything that we could engineer and do. So
got you. Well, thank you. So again, thank you so much for that. The next question, one of the last few questions left that I did want to ask you is, so you've done an incredible amount of research into wormholes to the point where
and warp drives.
And warp drives, yes, to the point where many people say that you are, in fact, the world's foremost expert on both wormholes, warp drives, and general relativity. Could you be so kind as to break down the various types of wormholes that general relativity would permit theoretically?
Okay, well, I appreciate that people think of me that way, but it's not true. The foremost expert is Matt Visser and his collaborators, Francisco Lobo and Carlo Rovelli. And there's
Rovelli, Lobo, and Visser are obviously the people that came up with wormhole the math early on, but that does not put them on the level of Eric Davis. Eric Davis has seen wormholes and shit in black projects. Like, if you guys don't realize, like, Eric Davis is working on black projects related to warp drives and wormholes, no question whatsoever. He's a pretty good liar, but he's also not that good a liar. He's contradicted himself a couple times already just in this interview. And it's always really weird. It's a defense mechanism when people are saying, like, that we can't engineer that. That's not possible. That's not somebody who's an open-minded physicist would say. That's something that, like, somebody has in their brain a wall. They have a wall, and you can't go past one side of the wall. This side of the wall says publicly available information, doesn't say that we can do that. This side of the wall says, yeah, we've already figured that out in the black projects. Eric Davis is only accessing one side of his information. I mean, guys, what do you guys think he's working on if he's not working on this? He's the world's leading expert on warp drives and wormholes, and he's a black project government physicist. He's not working on rainbows and unicorns for the government. He's working on warp drives. Why do you think he's connected to the UFO phenomenon? It's not because his knowledge of extraterrestrials. He's connected to the UFO phenomenon from the government because of warp drives and wormholes. Like, this is where I look at the UFO community and I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? How have you not figured out that this guy is clearly working on warp drives and wormholes with the United States government? What else do you guys think that he's doing? People are so stupid. They just go, he could be working on a lot of stuff. He might be working on making, like, stuffed animals for maybe he's working on talking plasma for the U.S. government. No, man. His expertise and papers are all in 0-point energy, extracting 0-point energy, producing wormholes, producing negative energy. I've never heard anybody speak to the level of detail about negative energy that Eric Davis just did in this interview. Nobody ever. I've been talking with PhD physicists. In fact, there's a clip of Lex Friedman talking to an astrophysicist. The astrophysicist thinks that negative energy is some purpley, swirly, exotic substance. Like, nobody understands this stuff to the level Eric Davis does. If the UFO community just woke up and realized the answers are sitting there right in front of them and stop being idiots for 1 second, they would have already solved all this.
There's a few other names out there, not too many of them, but they're the ones that did all the pioneering publications on it. And I picked it up as I applied it to faster light propulsion physics. These guys did the fundamental theory work on those topics. So basically, well, there's a whole topology of traversable wormholes. As a matter of fact, there's a taxonomy of them. And almost the same thing with warp drive, but a taxonomy of wormhole means you've got static wormholes, which means they don't change in time. You create them and they stay the same. You turn it on or you can turn it off. Okay. Now that subdivides into a taxonomy of what's the shape of the throat. So you have all kinds of different wormhole throat shapes. They could be spherical. They could be like a stargate, a plane. They could be dodecahedral, tetrahedral, and so forth. I can't think of the other ones, but there's a whole bunch of different shapes of traversable wormhole throat, which Matt Visser identified and published in his book Lorentzian Traversable Wormholes from Einstein to Hawking in the AIP Press, 1995. And that's a great traversable wormhole monograph. Then the other part of the wormholes is you start. So you have the dynamic, then you have you have the static. Now you have the dynamic wormholes. The dynamic wormholes just mean that they change in time. Gotcha. Okay, so they have a property such that they're not constant or static with time. They change. They either increase in size or decrease in size. That type of thing.
Gotcha.
Okay, raise your hand if you knew there was more than one kind of wormhole. I had no idea. That is like, well, how many wormhole types did he just list off? Like 4 different kinds of wormholes? I didn't realize there was more than one kind. I just thought you were just making a rip in the space-time. There we go. I thought that was it. Okay. So that's pretty interesting. And yeah, somebody said in the chat, like, well, he can't violate his NDAs. Exactly. And he's never going to violate his NDAs. So to expect that, like, one day Eric Davis is going to testify to Congress is never going to happen. And this is the thing, like, we have to just do it ourselves. So when people are saying, like, I'm saying, like, UFO community could have figured this out, and they go, well, no, because Eric Davis won't testify. You don't need him to testify. Read his scientific papers. Watch what he's saying to you. And you go, well, how can I trust him? Because he's literally explaining science and physics to you. If you understand that, if we all understand the science and physics, we don't have to depend on Eric Davis to testify to Congress. You can't hide science and physics from people if people understand how it works. That's the answer. It's always been the answer.
Okay, but they will have the same taxonomy of throat shapes.
Got you.
Okay, and then you have wormholes that could be specifically designed to work as time machines. So
Right.
there's your type of wormholes.
Right. Okay. Got you. Wow. Interesting. Thank you. That's very intriguing.
Okay, announcement. I'm talking to Jason Giorgiani this week. It's going to drop this weekend. I can't wait for it. I'm super excited. We're going to talk time travel, 0-point energy. We're going to talk about this technology that's being hidden. I want to get his impression and thoughts on the idea of the breakaway civilization and anything else that he's got. Also, I want to find out if Jason Giorgiani is connected to Peter Thiel of Palantir, because I've literally heard him use the exact same arguments that Peter Thiel used on Joe Rogan. So make sure you guys check out that podcast dropping this weekend. Can't wait to talk to the guy. I couldn't keep it secret any longer.
Speaking, the next thing I did want to ask was that a lot of people that I've personally interacted with without mentioning names seem to have a misunderstanding or don't understand whatsoever that, again, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but that the 4-vector potential is in fact more fundamental than the.
Okay, so they talk about the 4-vector potential here. This is where he gets back into scalar physics. It gets kind of complicated, but I'm going to go ahead and scroll forward here because we're kind of out of time for tonight. We're near the end though anyway.
Balls are oscillating.
Right.
Okay, so you got a field of oscillating electric charges coupled to each other across an infinite field in space.
Okay, so he also describes this idea of the 0-point energy being these small point particles that are oscillating. They're connected together via a spring. So you can imagine basically the Zitterbuergong. He basically describes the Zitterbuergong, which is this oscillation. Imagine this energy that's out there, and it's constantly oscillating, and every point is connected to every other point through this oscillation that's out there. That's what Eric Davis explains. He also mentions plasma at some point. I don't remember where it was, but somewhere in here he briefly mentions plasma as well.
Got you. Yep.
Okay, so how do we describe that mathematically as a quantum field? All right, so I'm going to skip a lot of the work here, the math, and go right to the throat. The throat is, I'm going to grab the throat, and I'm going to say they had to invent the vector potential.
Right.
Now, the vector potential was already known by Maxwell. It was a gauging condition that he used on his equations for the.
So just a second ago, he was saying that there were not, or actually in the beginning of this interview, he was saying there was not longitudinal electromagnetic waves. And now he's explaining the vector potential, which is the basis for there to be longitudinal waves. So now he's contradicting kind of what he was saying before.
Time and space varying electric and magnetic fields. And so when you apply a derivative,
I'm going to skip ahead of this. It's going to be way too over people's heads. But
question after this, then we're done. So no, thank you.
Yeah. So let me wrap that up. So basically, that's the fundamental field from which the electric and magnetic fields can be derived, and it's the fundamental field from which the quantum chromodynamic field is derived. It's the fundamental field from which the electroweak field is derived. And so everything can be reduced down to the 4-vector potential. And everybody kept going, both in physics and electronic electrical engineering courses, saying that's not a measurable field. It's a mathematical device to help make the calculations of Maxwell's equations simpler, easier to do.
Right.
But the fact is that Aharonoff and Bohm predicted that you can measure it.
Because if the classic, just to clarify, if the classical electrical engineers and all that were saying it was just a mathematical construct, if they were right, then that means the Aharonoff-Bohm experiment would not have worked.
That's correct.
Right.
So they were wrong. They were all wrong because Aharonoff and Bohm proved that if you shoot two beams of electrons one on one side, one on the other side of a magnetic solenoid, where current is moving in a solenoid. And what does the mathematics for Maxwell's equations say about where the magnetic field is? The magnetic field is confined inside the solenoid.
Inside, right.
So therefore, the prediction is the two beams on each side of the solenoid should go in a straight trajectory from where they're emitted to where they end up going off into infinity, or maybe they hit a wall on the other side.
Right.
Okay, well, that's not what happened.
Right, right.
What happened is, if you put a screen on the other side, on the back side of the solenoid, you found that the two electron beams created an interference pattern. Why?
Right.
Because they were bent. Oh my God, you're saying that the electron beams on either side of the solenoid were bent around their trajectory?
Okay, so what he's saying here, this is something I've mentioned several times. Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect shows that there are potentials that exist even in the absence of electromagnetic fields. Why is this huge? Because at the beginning of this interview, Eric Davis said electromagnetic fields must have a longitudinal or a transverse component to them. But what we just heard right there is that there's an experiment that shows there are potentials that exist even outside of that. And if you watch the whole thing and kind of combine everything he says together, he's saying that there are these quantum oscillators in the 0-point energy that connect everything. So even if you have an area of absence of electromagnetic fields, you are still manipulating the area, the 0-point energy around it, and you can see a phase change occur in the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect. If there was nothing there, if space was empty, then the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect, there would be no phase shift. The lines would move forward. There's nothing impacting them, but they're shifting. The Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect shows that we can potentially produce a scalar potential within the medium itself. It's absolutely huge. So this is where you can tell Eric Davis is playing both sides here. He's playing both sides here. He knows the truth. And he's skirting around his NDAs or whatever he's doing. He's gatekeeping. I don't really know. Honestly, it's fine. The difference between Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, and the rest of the UFO community is that Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff have actually accomplished something. They've actually put scientific papers out there that anybody can read anytime they want, and they can understand it for themselves. The rest of the UFO community has done nothing but just tell stories, right? So these guys, they can gatekeep because they have the privilege of gatekeeping. It's their information that we're reading anyway. If they didn't publish any scientific papers, we wouldn't have anything to go off of. So we're going to give him a little bit of a leeway on this front. Okay, guys? Yes, vacuum energy is like sea level. Exactly. Think of it like sea level. We only see everything above sea level. It's like saying that there's nothing in the ocean, that everything below sea level is emptiness, is not there. It doesn't exist. But we know that 70% of the earth is covered in water. It's a very, very good analogy. And if you remove that water, you lower that sea level, you then change, if I jump then into it, then I'm not going to jump into the water anymore. I'm just going to fall into the ground or what have you. Same idea of how you manipulate mass and inertia. This is an absolute fact that is proven through multiple experiments. Absolutely proven. We just looked at the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect, Casimir effect, which we talked about, also the Lamb shift, as well as why helium-3 does not freeze. Why does helium-3 not freeze? Even at absolute zero, it doesn't freeze. Pretty obvious, because we're not at the bottom. We're not at the bottom yet, chat. Joyce, thank you for that $20 donation. I appreciate you. Joyce Johns, Bookworm, thank you very much. Huge donation. I love purple things. Me too, Skull Vikings. Merry Christmas, Ashton. Thank you so much for your tireless efforts, exceptional tutorials, world-class trolling, and hilarious antics. Yeah, guys, you cannot, very few people can compete with me when it comes to trolling and using social media. Very few can. Thank you very much. I love purple things. Appreciate that. Wow, CFs. Appreciate you. Australian dollars are just as good as normal people dollars. Thank you very much. Flex up. Peace sign. Thumbs up. Thank you very much. And TNAZ. TNZZ. I'm just going to call you Thomas in Arizona. Tom in Arizona. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ashton, for the interesting videos. Keep them coming. Yeah, honestly, this stuff is more incredible than any movie or TV show that I could watch. Like, this is real, and this is almost like science fiction, but actually real. Now, I think he says something interesting here at the end. Let's go to the end.
If you do it that way, strip out the B, replace it with the B's definition in terms of A, you'll get the radiation of A.
So basically at the end there, he's talking about manipulating Maxwell's equations to produce a scalar potential, but he just doesn't say it. I'm like, wait, what? And I don't know what's going on here, but like Dave is asking questions that I would have asked. It's like he's doing me a favor by doing this interview, which is like, you start to wonder, like, am I being used here? Like, I've got Dave Rossi, I've got Eric Davis here corroborating, explaining the stuff we're seeing in the MH370 videos, Sal Pais, we've got whistleblowers, we've got all these people that are coming out. Like, there's something happening here behind the scenes. So I hope we get to find out.
So amazing. Well, I just want to say, first off, we're coming up to to end. We're coming up to almost 2 hours at this point. I want to thank you so much for your time.
So, do you have any other questions?
One final question I did want to ask. This is more just for the people that are more interested in my audience, within my audience regarding UAP crash recovery and all of that, relative to what you could speak on. So, putting private contractors aside for a moment, is there any agency that you know of in which you can comment on that would be likely to hold the most amount of UAP recovered vehicles or material? For instance, would the DOE have more access or have within their possession more material or biologics or information compared to the DIA or the NSA or the CIA, or does it depend, or is there an overlap?
Okay, that isn't how it works. How it works is that there is a intelligence agency owner of the crash retrieval portfolio.
Gotcha. Okay.
The executive agency that carries, the intelligence agency only has a science and technology directorate that handles spy technology development or the reverse engineering of enemy spies technology. Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay, so they're limited. They're limited in what they can do.
Right.
So what they do is they go to an executive agent that handles all of the laboratory work for them.
Gotcha.
And that would be Department of Defense elements. So it's not that one agency has more than another. It's that one agency owns it all and delegates the work to the Department of Defense.
Gotcha.
And the Department of Defense delegates that work to the private contractors, because when Bush was president during the 2000s, he said, we're going to commercialize government. We're going to turn, government more into a business operation. So the consequence of that is we're going to remove science from a lot of our DoD agencies.
Right.
I mean, we have the Air Force Research Lab. That's science. We have the Army Research Lab and the Naval Research Lab. Those are science.
So, holy shit. I mean, it's hard to believe what Eric Davis is saying here because we know he's lying in this video in general, but it's not like overtly lying. It's like these playing word games in some cases. But whoa. Basically what he's saying there is there's like one body that controls it all. They can outsource the information, and they use NGOs and PMCs, private military contractors, non-government organizations, to skirt FOIA requests and laws. There's no way to track this stuff down. This is why we can't pass an audit.
Right. But that's it. But those are for specific mission purposes or application. This type of thing is a lot more different than those.
Wow.
Gotcha. So
real quick, Steven, wow, $40 Cash App. You guys have been going crazy. Thank you very much, Steven. Greatly appreciated. Merry Christmas to everyone, by the way. I am going to give some Amazon gift cards to some of my moderators, and a couple people have been big contributors for Christmas, which I did last year as well, just to thank these guys. I appreciate it. And if I have some money left over, I'll probably do some, I'll try to figure out how to do like a giveaway or something on the live streams for you guys. Because I want to give back and appreciate everything that you guys have done as well for me. Couple other donations that look like rolled in here in the last second. Damn, this has been going crazy. And it was Tammy in Arizona. Thank you, Tammy. Sorry about that. John Lee, have you seen the FCC listing for Lockheed in New Jersey? Call sign. I have not seen that. I've not seen that, unfortunately. But thank you. Discovering Diamonds, $20. Thank you very much. Hey, Ashton. Happy holidays. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you support. Or if you are non-denominational or non-religious, then yeah, enjoy your time off. Kim Beardsley says, you are the best thing on TV. I wouldn't really call myself TV, but we're doing it. We're doing it, Kim. Thank you very much, everybody who's out here supporting. Appreciate you.
It'll be a glom of Department of Energy labs, military, maybe some military labs, but generally security is better and is harder. And well, first of all these laboratories are subject to FOIA.
Right. Yeah.
But so if you hand it off to corporate America is not subject to FOIA because that's the private enterprise. And not only that, they have judicially tested proprietary protection laws for their intellectual property. Any work that they do on a defense or intelligence agency contract that invents something new, that's intellectual property that they own. Now the government paid for it, so the government doesn't get into profit sharing. It's how the government agrees with the company to share the IP in general.
Wow. I mean, he pretty much confirms all our suspicions about FOIAs. Before we go, just to answer some last questions, no, I'm not a Fed. No one will ever be able to prove I'm a Fed because I'm not. And I am a contractor with the government. I have been a contractor for several years now with the government. I told you guys I work in healthcare IT. I don't say the name of my company because I'm not legally, or if I were to talk about my company in any official respect, I could easily lose my job. I have something called like a media agreement or something like that. If you work at a large company, you have these media agreements. No, I'm not going to download Pegasus and show you guys the results on my phone. Let's keep it a little bit non-insane, guys. I've assumed that they've hacked my phone long ago. I don't say anything on my phone that I don't assume that the government is listening. If the government hasn't hacked all of my stuff and been listening to everything that I've been doing, then they're kind of incompetent. If I was the government, I would have hacked my phone and I would have been looking to figure out if this guy, Ashton Forbes, is talking to people, if he's being fed information. Spoiler alert, I'm not. I'm not being fed any classified information whatsoever. Everything that you guys have been seeing here has been publicly available, open sourced information. Everything you guys see, I get post about as well. Just kind of goes to show that all the information is really out there. You just kind of have to dig into it and find it, and you can, and you will. So, okay, guys, I think that's about it. He said there was something in there that I skipped over where he mentions plasma as being potentially an engineering solution. I think I may be getting my wires mixed up. I only listened to it one time. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you guys very much. There's not going to be a live stream on Christmas. Well, there might be, but probably not a live stream on Christmas just because I need to take a break and relax. But there will definitely be a live stream on Friday. My content will keep pushing out here the next couple of days as well. Thank you guys very much for hanging out with us. Thank you, MH370X. I love you guys. I hope everybody has a great night. Peace out, everyone. Oh, and I learned how to set outro videos, so we're going to try this out. Let's see how this works. It doesn't work, it looks like. Here it is. Oh, shit. Sorry, it's bugged out. Give me a second. There it is. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay. Yeah, sorry. The outro video thing is broken, so I'm just going to do it the normal way.
In the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow.
Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism, plate so fine. Spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Unknown forces balancing the plates, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound. A shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos, our future.